Warrior Lore. Chapter 2083. This scene made the 18 celestial generals, who were filled with killing intent, look at each other and click their tongues in shock. Lian Qingrong, Imo Tianxiao, Dongfang Qingmu, Jialo Jueyu, Dongli Ruoshu, and the other extraordinary supremes were all agitated at this moment. Let's see who dares to make a fuss. I won't be polite to you. The supreme being Ant Phoenix hovered in the sky, surrounded by 7-colored divine flames. Her eyes were sharp as she looked around. The creatures and small forces that originally wanted to fish in troubled waters had long retreated far away. They were as silent as cicadas in winter. Their bodies were trembling, and they did not dare to speak. Woo-woo. The sky, full of soul-devouring divine ants, hissed and returned to the mountain like a tide. Finally, they turned into a ray of light and returned to the body of the supreme being Ant Phoenix. Du Xiaohuang withdrew her body and turned back into the harmless little girl. The corners of her eyes were big as she scanned the surrounding void. Then, she happily returned to Du Xiaofu's side. Her little mouth was raised, revealing a sense of arrogance and pride. She said, "Father, I killed that annoying old man. Be careful next time. Don't be disobedient." Du Xiaofu smiled bitterly. Although the little girl was related to the Phoenix clan and ordinary people did not dare to touch her, he had many enemies. There were also existences that did not fear the Phoenix clan. He could not let anything happen to the little girl. However, at this moment, Du Xiaofu was secretly gratified. He did not disappoint the ancient Ant Emperor. The little girl successfully transformed and became a butterfly. She shocked the world. "I've gained something this time. Let's see if these weapons are suitable for me," Du Xiaofu said. As he secretly formed hand seals, rays of light shot out from his body with the sound of wind and thunder. Rays of light flew in front of Huang Ling Huang Wu, Feng Han, Chu Feng, Qi Jejun, Zhou Wanan, and the other 2 extraordinary disciples of the Yin-Yang school. Rays of light filled the air, and an ancient pressure filled the air. There were a total of 8 ancient sacred weapons and a few Qinkuan bags. This is Feng Han, Chu Feng, Huang Wu, Zhou Wanan, and the others were stunned. Those were primordial sacred artifacts. Next, looks of joy appeared on their faces. Fearing that Du Xiaofu would go back on his word, they quickly collected the sacred artifacts and cosmos pouches. Qi Yeshi smiled. She didn't mind that she didn't get the saint weapon. She naturally understood Du Xiaofu's intentions. The Moon Saint and the Phoenix Blaze Saint both looked slightly surprised. The entire Phoenix clan and the school of Yin-Yang definitely didn't have many holy artifacts. And right now, Du Xiaofu was being extremely generous. Giving Huang Linger, Qi Shi, and the other holy items was no different from giving them to the Phoenixes and the Yin-Yang school. Although the Phoenix clan and the school of Yin-Yang did not contribute to breaking the formation and even relied on the Demon King to break the formation, the Demon King did not take all the benefits for himself. Moon Saint and Phoenix Blaze Saint smiled. It was enough for the Phoenix clan and the school of Yin-Yang to get such a great bargain. The other forces didn't get anything. My grandson isn't stingy. You 2 have to take care of him in the future. Jialo Batian looked at Moon Saint and Phoenix Blaze Saint with a serious expression. Moon Saint and Phoenix Blaze Saint couldn't help but glare at Jialo Batian helplessly. The pile of sacred artifacts and treasures just now had all been taken by Du Xiaofu and the other 2. If they were to really talk about it, the Barren Nation's foundation on the surface was definitely not below the 9 great clans. Although Du Xiaofu didn't give it to the Golden-Winged Great Rocks, with Du Xiaofu's relationship with the Golden-Winged Great Rocks, he would definitely receive more than the Yin-Yang school and the Phoenixes. We have to thank the Barren Nation for breaking the formation this time. An old and drawn-out voice rang out. Figures descended from all directions. There were quite a few of them, and their auras were surging. Du Xiaofu looked up. It was the school of Moism, the school of Confucianism, the school of agriculture, and the school of Taoism. There were quite a lot of people and many experts. In addition to the familiar Mo Runan, Kong Sansi, Zhou Xiaoluo, Su Yangzi, and the others, there were also some experts of the older generation, such as the great ancestor Tian Beiqin of the school of Taoism and the great ancestor Meng one of the school of Confucianism. They were all powerful existences below the saint plane. The leaders of the school of Confucianism, the school of Taoism, and the school of agriculture were the four saints. Greetings, Grand Shaman. The disciples of the school of Confucianism came forward, including Kong Yuqi and the others, and bowed respectfully to Du Xiaofu. When the school of Confucianism had been in seclusion to comprehend, Du Xiaofu had passed through the heavens path at Wu Peak, and thus received the title of Grand Shaman of the school of Confucianism. The Grand Shaman did not interfere in the affairs of the school of Confucianism, but his status was equal to that of the High Lord. This guy is the Grand Shaman of the school of Confucianism. Moon Saint, Xingu, and many others were surprised. They knew what the Grand Shaman of the school of Confucianism represented. No wonder this guy has the power of the sorcerer god of the school of Confucianism. Huangling Qi Yeshi, and the others, who had been puzzled, finally understood at this moment. No wonder Du Xiaofu had the power of the sorcerer god of the school of Confucianism. It turned out that this guy had always been the Grand Shaman of the school of Confucianism. No need for formalities. Du Xiaofu smiled helplessly. It was his chance to comprehend the sorcerer god's scripture through the Sorcerer Peak's path. He had to thank the school of Confucianism for helping him. Du Xiaofu looked at the middle-aged Saint Plain Confucian in front of the school of Confucianism. He wore elegant Confucian robes and had an extraordinary temperament. He was secretly surprised. Du Xiaofu had seen the martial Saint Mengjiyuan in the school of Confucianism back then. His aura was even more powerful than the Saint Plain experts of the school of legalism and the school of vertical and horizontal. But at this moment, he did not come. The school of Confucianism has more than one Saint Plain expert? Du Xiaofu was secretly shocked. But Du Xiaofu did not think too much about it. Bright light gushed out in front of him again, filled with an ancient aura. Du Xiaofu summoned 8 ancient sacred artifacts and rushed to Zhou Xiaoluo, Zhang Yunfeng, Mo Runan, Mo Junyu, Kong Sansi, Kong Yuqi, Su Yangzi, and Su Lingzi, handing them to the 8 of them in front of everyone. The 4 Saint Plain experts of the school of agriculture, Confucianism, Taoism, and Moism all understood in their hearts. They smiled, proving that their choice back then was right. Moon Saint, Xingu, and Phoenix Blaze Saint saw this with smiles on their faces, but their hearts were secretly stirred. Who said that the Demon King Du Xiaofu was only ferocious and powerful? This guy was clearly trying to rope in the various clans. Today, he was so generous, and there were more than a dozen ancient sacred artifacts. If it was someone else, they would probably be reluctant to do so. Even they would be reluctant to do so. Has this kid changed his nature? In the school of Moism's lineup, Sima Taxing, Elder Gu Qingyang, and many others were secretly surprised. They knew Du Xiaofu's character best in their hearts. He was a pain in the ass. He had always been the one taking advantage of others. When had he ever been so generous? In fact, Du Xiaofu was also reluctant to do so. But over the years, Du Xiaofu had received a lot of help from the school of Confucianism, Taoism, school of agriculture, school of Yin-Yang, and the others. Secondly, the school of vertical and horizontal, the dragons, and the others had united together. This made Du Xiaofu understand that although his own strength was true strength, sometimes he absolutely needed the support of allies. Chapter 2084. Confucianism, Taoism, and others were undoubtedly the best choices for allies. Du Xiaofu felt the pinch after taking out more than a dozen ancient sacred artifacts. However, under such circumstances, how could Du Xiaofu not understand in his heart that it was absolutely unwise to take it all for himself? Even if he was not afraid of others, it was hard to guarantee that he would not be targeted. If he took out some now, it would not only be a big favor, but it was also likely that others would not dare to think about it. Du Xiaofu did not forget about himself. Although he had taken out almost all the sacred artifacts he had obtained, he felt that the strongest ancient sacred artifacts and the Qinkuan bag, which he had gained the most from, were all kept in his hands. There were also Du Xiaoyao and Zhun Qingquan's gains that had not been touched. This was definitely the most abundant. Greetings, Master, Grandmaster, Senior Brother. Then, Du Xiaofu saluted his Master Gu Qingyang, Grandmaster Golden Rock Realm Ruler, and Senior Brother Sima Taxing. Gu Qingyang, Golden Rock Domain Master, and the others smiled. Even in front of several Saint Realm experts, They felt that they could raise their heads, especially Gu Qingyang, who had the demeanor of an immortal, but when he smiled, he revealed two front teeth. Who in the world did not know the Demon King, Du Xiaofu? He was Gu Qingyang's disciple. How glorious was that! Du Xiaofu had never been stingy with his master. Logically speaking, he should have given his master some good things since he had gained a lot this time. However, Du Xiaofu was not in a hurry to give it to him. After all, there was no time to make the sacred artifacts recognize him as their master. Moreover, it would make his master a target for others. Boom! Suddenly, there was a tremor in the void ahead. Demonic chi rushed into the sky, alarming everyone. People from the devil religion have entered. Du Xiaofu looked at the sky in front of him, which was the depths of the ancient battlefield. The ancient battlefield was too big. The place where they had just harvested the ancient sacred artifacts and treasures was at most in the outer region. With the talent of the redbone horse monkey meridian soul, Du Xiaofu had only come into contact with places with treasures. In the depths of the ancient battlefield, there was no life at all. The surroundings were hazy and dark. Du Xiaofu had been in a hurry to harvest the treasures because he was afraid that others would come in, so he didn't take a closer look. Du Xiaofu looked up at the sky as the demonic chi soared into the sky. His eyes narrowed as he carefully examined the area in front of him. The ancient battlefield that he was in was vast and boundless. The place that he had just passed was merely the border. In front of him, there was an ancient tree with cracked bark. It was incomparably vigorous and towered into the sky. Ancient vines wound around it like a coiling dragon. There were broken walls and ruins that stretched as far as the eye could see. Across the hazy, dim, and lifeless area, there was a huge, towering monster. It was like a ferocious beast of the universe that was crawling on this vast ancient battlefield, and its aura made one's soul tremble. The people from the devil religion appeared in front of him. They didn't seem to have wasted any time. They rushed forward as soon as they were out of the formation. The light there seemed to be very bright. As the mist drifted, the light was dazzling. However, as the people from the devil religion entered, their figures all disappeared. The demonic chi that swept out was surging from the misty light. It seemed that the people from the devil religion had encountered great trouble, and the experts from the devil religion had taken action. There are still treasures inside. A living being immediately rushed over. All the sacred artifacts and treasures outside had already fallen into the hands of the Demon King, Du Xiaofu. They could only look for opportunities inside, afraid that Du Xiaofu would beat them to it. It doesn't seem that simple. The Saint Realm expert from the School of Agriculture spoke. His hair was white, and he was dressed in plain clothes with flowery cloth shoes. The eyes on his old face were as deep as the sea. He was looking forward with a solemn expression. Everyone should have entered the heavenly devil battlefield to find out what's going on. Be careful. The Taoist Saint Realm expert said. He looked to be in his 50s, and his simple Taoist robe was extremely fitting. All the living beings rushed forward and were submerged in the misty light, causing the light to fluctuate. Du Xiaofu had been secretly watching the legalism, dragons, and other saints. He watched as several saints entered and disappeared. Then, the Taoists, School of Agriculture, School of Confucianism, School of Phoenix, School of Yin-Yang, and others all entered. Everyone, be careful. Du Xiaofu said to the disciples of the desolate country and the Du family as he followed them in. The aura within the misty light was even more terrifying. As they entered the misty light, the scene before everyone's eyes suddenly changed. The scene inside was vastly different from what they had seen before. This was a battlefield with dusky skies. Eerie white bones were scattered all over the vast land and broken walls. Wherever an inexplicable storm passed, bone fragments and dust would surge like a sandstorm. The scene was so terrifying that it made one's hair stand on end. This space was filled with an aura of death, and no signs of life could be felt. There was only decay and desolation, and the aura of death was everywhere. What is this place? Du Xiaofu subconsciously pinched his palm. This place was too much like an illusion, but his palm hurt. This was real. Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit probed his surroundings. He carefully studied it, But he did not feel that this place was an illusion matrix. This was a normal existence. Is this the battlefield from back then? Jialo Jueyu, Qi Yeshi, Dongli Qingqing, and the others were shocked. Everywhere was filled with white bones and broken walls. There was no sign of life in this ruined land. Was this the ancient battlefield from back then? No, it doesn't seem right, Jalobatian said. His eyes were filled with doubt, as if he had discovered something. Suddenly, Jalobatian stomped his foot, and a huge rock flew up from the ground. It then fell to the ground, smashing a hole in the ground and causing the ground to tremble. Jalobatian's expression changed. He stomped his foot again, and the huge rock flew up as he punched out. Bang! This time, the huge rock exploded in the air, turning into fine powder that sprinkled on the decaying ground. This place is strange. It has suppressed our cultivation. We can only use our physical strength. Jalobatian's expression was very serious. He had already verified that this strange place suppressed his cultivation, but it had no effect on his physical strength. Hearing this, everyone's expression changed. Moonsaint and Xian Gu also immediately probed, and they confirmed Jalobatian's words. Their expressions changed a lot. This strange place suppressed one's cultivation, and they could only use their physical strength. Du Xiaofu was also testing, and his hand seals were condensed. His cultivation was clearly at the peak of the unborn and imperishable realm, and he was not far from the Saint Plane, but he was inexplicably affected by a strange power in this space. He could not use any martial arts or techniques. Boom! A huge rock in front of Du Xiaofu was smashed into pieces by a punch. This was the physical strength of the peak of the unborn and imperishable realm. The golden light that burst out was the most direct and tyrannical power. Only the physical strength was not affected. What a strange place. Du Xiaofu was really shocked. This place was so strange and inconceivable. It was clearly not an illusion, but it suppressed one's cultivation. However, it did not have any effect on the physical strength. Du Xiaofu carefully sensed that Xian Qi could flow in his meridians and acupoints, but it was affected, and he could not use any martial arts or techniques. He could only use his physical strength. This is not good. How did they all disappear? Suddenly, Zheng Xingchun cried out in surprise. Some of the people who had been in front of them just now had disappeared. They did not know where they went. Devil religion, legalism, dragons, and the famous people have all disappeared. Dongli Qingqing was surprised. The devil religion, legalism, and the famous people who had been in the distance just now had disappeared. There was no trace of them in front of them. Little Xingxing is also gone. Senior Xiangu, where did he go? Feng Han and the others are also gone. Many exclamations came from all around, and everyone's expression changed. Little Xingxing, Xiangu, and many others who had been in the vicinity just now had disappeared. They did not know how they disappeared. This place is too strange. Be careful. Old Granny Jialo Maluo reminded everyone. Hula! A strange gale suddenly formed in front of them and swept towards everyone. It raised a sky full of white bones and dust, like a tsunami rolling up thousands of waves. Everyone, be careful. Stay close to each other. Many experts warned. However, in this place, they could only use their physical strength. It was difficult to protect the disciples around them. They could only let everyone stay close to each other. The gale swept across, covering the sky and the sun. It swept across many areas, blurring everything in front of them. Chilala, this gale was strange and powerful. It blew up many white bones and stones, which were like sharp swords. The power of the gale was enough to pierce through space. Bang bang! Du Xiaofu raised his arm and used his physical strength to shatter the nearby stones and white bones into powder. However, many people were swept away by the gale. Some were injured by the white bones and stones. It was difficult for their physical bodies to withstand it. Ordinary domain realm physical bodies can't withstand it. Du Xiaofu frowned and looked solemn. The power of the broken bones and stones swept out by the gale was enough to make ordinary domain realm cultivators unable to withstand it. This place was also a dangerous place. The gale came quickly, but it was immediately dissolved. The howling gale faded away, and the white bones and stones that filled the sky fell to the ground, turning into piles of hills and piling up beside everyone. Du Xiaofu's figure flew to the top of the mountain where the broken bones and rocks were intertwined. Although he had suppressed his cultivation, leaping at a low altitude was not a problem. However, if he wanted to fly, it would be impossible. There were also figures sweeping out and landing on the hills piled with broken bones and stones. However, there were not many of them. "Oh no, they're all gone," Xiaohu spoke as his pitch-black eyes scanned the surroundings. There were quite a number of people who had gathered together earlier, but there were only a dozen or so people who had appeared on top of the mountain filled with rocks and broken bones. The others disappeared into the strange storm for no reason at all. "It's too strange." Du Xiaofu was puzzled. This place was too strange. Why did everyone disappear for no reason? Chapter 2085. Third Young Master. What do we do now? Little Tiger and the others rushed to Du Xiaofu's side. They didn't know what to do, and were all very careful. Du Xiaofu looked around and found that only Little Tiger, Du Hao, Dai Xingyu, Gu Xinyan, Tang Wu, Wu Kei, Qi Jiejun, Feng Han, Tang Meiling, Jiang Qin, and a few elders and disciples from the school of Yinyang and Hahuan School were still around. There were only 16 people in total. Originally, there were almost 1,000 people from all the major forces together. It was a huge lineup. Quietly, that strange storm had caused so many people to disappear without a trace. Du Xiaoyao, Little Xingxing, Qi Yeshi, Dongli Qingqing, Jialo Batian, and the others had all disappeared. Du Xiaofu was very worried, and his heart was heavy. He looked around. Behind him was no different from when he came. There were still white bones everywhere, broken walls, and dilapidated battlefields everywhere. The huge monster in the distance was still towering. It seemed to be emitting an aura that made one's soul tremble. It was like a cosmic beast that was sleeping. "Let's go to the front." Du Xiaofu narrowed his eyes. That should be the center. This place was strange, but that should be their final destination. Du Xiaofu guessed that Du Xiaoyao, Little Xingxing, and his father should have landed somewhere else in this strange place. They couldn't find him, but as long as they could see the huge monster, they should be heading there. Then, Du Xiaofu led the group forward. Du Xiaofu tapped the ground with the tip of his foot. He didn't use any celestial qi, but with a little help, he was able to move very far away. His speed wasn't slow. However, Tang Wu, Gu Xinyan, Wu Kei, and the others obviously couldn't catch up to Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu could only slow down and be careful along the way. Whoosh! After a while, a huge hole appeared in the shattered ground in front of them. This huge hole was thousands of feet wide, like an abyss. What was more terrifying was that hot red lava was constantly flowing out. "Be careful." Du Xiaofu was in the distance. Just by approaching, he could feel an enormous devouring power and blazing energy spreading towards him. That devouring power seemed to want to devour him. The power was so strong that it was hard for him to resist. The scorching heat could burn everything. Wisps of white smoke appeared in the air. Ordinary bodies would not be able to resist it. "Retreat." Du Xiaofu immediately ordered the people behind him to retreat, not wanting to be devoured. Wu Wu, however, as Du Xiaofu and the others immediately retreated, strange noises could be heard coming from the abyss where the lava was overflowing. The sound was ear-piercing and mournful, as if something was roaring and struggling. A woo! The roars of beasts rang out. Terrifying creatures crawled out from the magma overflowing abyss. More and more of them appeared, densely packed. Some of these strange creatures looked like apes, but they weren't apes. Some looked like wolves, and some looked like evil spirits. They weren't very big, but their bodies were filled with blazing lava. Those strange and ferocious creatures seemed to have some kind of shackles covered in lava that pierced through their bodies. Woo woo! The densely packed strange and ferocious creatures that crawled out continuously fell back down. Amidst shrill screams, they seemed to turn into ashes. White smoke filled the air, leaving nothing behind. However, a few of the most powerful creatures broke free of their shackles. Their lava-covered eyes stared fixedly at Du Xiaofu, Jiang Qin, and the little tiger. Their eyes were filled with merciless killing intent, and they pounced directly at Du Xiaofu and the others. Oh, whoa. These ferocious creatures rushed over at an inconceivable speed. Magma dripped from their bodies, capable of burning the earth. Their auras were scorching and terrifying. Everywhere they passed, the earth would crack, and blazing flames would emerge from the ground. Boom! Du Xiaofu and Jiangchen attacked. The ferocious creatures charging over were crushed into lava in the most barbaric manner possible, shattering large swaths of the void. However, even more ferocious creatures crawled out of the abyss. Many fell back down, but there were also powerful creatures that broke free of their shackles and charged at them. Retreat to the left. Go around them, Du Xiaofu shouted. He raised his arms and punched out, blocking their path and shattering the ferocious creatures. Given Du Xiaofu's physical strength, he wasn't in too much danger against these ferocious creatures. However, Du Xiaofu was worried about Gu Xinyan, Tang Wu, Tang Meiling, and the others. These ferocious creatures were very powerful. Ordinary cultivators of the domain would find it very difficult to defend against them. Their blazing auras alone were enough to greatly affect one's nascent soul. Gu Xinyan, Tang Meiling, and the others didn't dare to tarry. They all retreated to the left. Du Xiaofu and Jiangchen blocked the ferocious creatures that constantly crawled out of the abyss. They used the strength of their physical bodies to shatter the strange creatures. Even the void was blasted apart, causing large amounts of lava to spill out. Only after Tang Meiling, Dai Xingyu, and Gu Xinyan had retreated far away did Du Xiaofu and Jiangchen give each other a meaningful glance. They shattered the nearest ferocious creatures, then retreated. Awoo! The creatures roared savagely. Although their eyes were filled with killing intent, their gazes were empty. Seeing Du Xiaofu and Jiangchen hastily retreat, the ferocious creatures gave up after chasing them for tens of thousands of feet. Instead, they began to wander about in confusion, leaving behind lava wherever they went. Wu! Du Xiaofu, Jiangchen, Gu Xinyan, Dai Xingyu, and the others landed on a distant mountain peak. They gazed at the cave in front of them. Flames soared into the sky, and miserable screams rang out continuously. It was a hair-raising sight. What were those things just now? Tang Meiling's enchanting face was still shaken. Her red lips were pursed, and her heart was still palpitating. They were probably affected by this place, but there's no way to confirm it. However, we shouldn't stay here for long. We need to take a detour, Du Xiaofu said. It was unlikely that they'd be able to cross the cave. Although taking a detour would take them a bit longer, it would undoubtedly be much safer. Did you discover anything? Du Xiaofu asked Jiangchen. It's very strange. I haven't discovered anything yet. Jiangchen shook his head. His expression was calm as he continued to examine their surroundings. The group continued onward until they arrived at a mountain range. The old bark of the towering trees had cracked open, and thick, ancient vines climbed up the rocks and towering trees. They were as vigorous as horned dragons. The mountain range was very large. Although Du Xiaofu and the others' speed had been affected, they were still quite fast. After traveling for an hour, they still hadn't left the mountain range. Along the way, Du Xiaofu saw quite a few skeletons, as well as the remains of enormous demonic beasts. However, these skeletons were no different from ordinary bones. The bones of the demonic beasts seemed to have been affected by the aura of death. They'd been corroded into ordinary bones and were completely useless. Their figures tapped the ground as they continued onward. Suddenly, Du Xiaofu stopped in his tracks. He tilted his head and looked to the side, his brows arched. "What's wrong?" asked Qi Jiejun. "There's someone here," Du Xiaofu said. Although he was suppressed to the point where he could only use the power of his physical body and couldn't use the power of his nascent divinity was still there. However, the power of his essence soul still existed. His instincts were still there. Du Xiaofu sensed the auras of others. Could it be Junior Sister and the others? Asked Tang Meiling. Du Xiaofu's eyes widened, and he flew over. Not far away, there were several figures walking cautiously, appearing in Du Xiaofu's line of sight. "There are beasts. I don't recognize them," said Qi Jiejun. He didn't recognize those people, but he could sense the aura of beasts. Whoosh! Suddenly, the void in front of them changed. A terrifying blade light slashed through the air. Accompanied by the power to shatter the void, it landed directly on one of those people. Swish! Such a saber slash created a huge wave in the void. Space shattered. The figure that was slashed didn't even have time to react before he was slashed into pieces by the saber. As the blade light swept out, a shadow swept out of the void. It was a strange old man. The robe on his body was tattered, loosely covering his somewhat withered body. His whole body seemed to be skin and bones. There was no flesh on his face. It was as if old skin covered his skull. The old man held a treasured blade in his hand that was covered with dazzling runes. The blade seemed to have stars revolving and moonlight permeating the air. The ancient pressure was very terrifying. The old man opened his eyes. His gaze was empty, with a kind of ruthless and murderous intent. When the old man appeared, the faces of Chi Yeshi and the other elders from the Inyang school suddenly changed. They carefully sized him up and looked very serious. Swish! When the old man appeared, he didn't stop at all. The blade light slashed out, and another figure was directly killed. Roar! A figure turned into a huge body. A pair of huge eyes shone with a fierce light. It was a huge bird covered in scales. In this strange battlefield, only the physical strength could be used. As a beast, the body was the strongest combat power. The huge bird didn't hesitate to use its body. However, it was useless. The strange old man was extremely ruthless. He waved his hand and a claw stretched out. There was an invisible force gathering, twisting the void. He directly grabbed the huge bird's wings and threw it to the ground. The ground trembled as cracks intertwined and spread out like a spider web. The huge bird wasn't weak. Its aura was very strong, but it was thrown to a pulp by the strange old man. Blood flowed out. It was thrown to death. The last figure was also killed by the strange old man with a lightning-fast slash. Be careful. Du Xiaofu warned everyone. The strange old man was very strong. The treasured blade in his hand was also an extraordinary saint artifact. Its power seemed to be affected by this strange space, but the old man was too strong. He was much stronger than the sinister creature that had crawled out of the magma cave not long ago. After the old man killed the figures, his withered face was filled with ruthless killing intent. He stared at Du Xiaofu, Jiangxin, and the others. Kill. The old man's eyes were filled with only killing intent and ruthlessness. His short words were cold and emotionless. He leapt forward, slashing his blade at the group. Chapter 2086. Jiangxin's purple robes fluttered as he pushed off the ground. At the same time, he shot forward. Although his cultivation had been suppressed, he still possessed a fiendish aura that seemed to come from the depths of hell. With a wave of his sleeve, he unleashed a claw attack that tore through the air, blocking the old man's attack. Bang! 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 The sword light and Jiangxin's claw collided, exploding with a thunderous boom. The surrounding rocks and mountains shook violently, cracking apart. Not too far away, a towering tree exploded. Crackle. Jiangxin was sent flying backward, landing on the ground. He staggered, crushing rocks beneath his feet. Jiangxin's expression was no longer calm. Tiny cracks had appeared on his palms, and strange blood seeped out of them. That was the wound left by the treasured sword, but it quickly healed. The body of a sage. Jiangxin stared at the withered old man in astonishment, his eyes rippling with shock. Although the strange old man had been suppressed and could only use the power of his physical body, his physical strength had reached the level of a sage. It was incomparably powerful. Crackle. The withered old man was sent flying back by Jiangxin. Relying on the treasured sword in his hand, he'd gained a great advantage. His eyes were ruthless and emotionless. Without the slightest hesitation, he steadied himself, then charged forward again like a wild beast. This time, the withered old man struck out with his palm. His physical strength caused the air to tremble and shatter. Rumble. Du Xiaofu punched out with all his strength, colliding with the old man's palm. The air rumbled, and a powerful wind swept out, shattering the ground. Crackle. The withered old man was sent flying, and Jiangchen was injured. Du Xiaofu's punch had contained the full force of his physical body. The strange old man was sent crashing into a pile of rubble, kicking up a cloud of dust. Thump, thump. Du Xiaofu was also sent flying. He skidded across the ground, causing the ground to crack. The physical strength of a sage is so strong. Du Xiaofu shook his arms, his fists numb. As Jiangchen had verified, the strange, withered old man was definitely a sage. However, this strange, withered old man with Saint Realm cultivation was also suppressed in this strange battlefield. He could only use the power of his physical body. But when Feng Han saw this, all he felt was shock for Jiangchen and Du Xiaofu. That strange old man had the strength of a Saint Realm expert. Although he couldn't use his Saint Realm cultivation, his physical body had the physical strength of a Saint Realm expert. However, Jiangchen and Du Xiaofu were able to force their opponents back. Their bodies were terrifyingly powerful, proving that they could contend with saints. Boom! Rubble flew everywhere, and dust filled the air. A strange, withered old man in ragged robes charged out from the rubble, his eyes filled with ruthlessness as he stared fixedly at Du Xiaofu and Jiangchen. "Senior, are you a senior of the school of Yinyang?" These words came from the mouths of the elders from the school of Yinyang. Trembling, they rushed to Du Xiaofu and Jiangchen's side. He should be a senior expert of the school of Yinyang, who left behind in the heavenly devil battlefield. Qi Jiajun arrived at Du Xiaofu's side, his eyes trembling as he stared at the strange, withered old man. Based on the treasured saber and the signs of it attacking, Qi Jiajun and the elders from the school of Yinyang sensed that this strange old man was most likely a senior of the school of Yinyang, who'd left behind in the heavenly devil battlefield. A senior of the school of Yinyang from the primordial era? When he heard this, Du Xiaofu was astonished. Dai Xingyu, Du Xiaoyao, Tang Meiling, Gu Xinyan, and the others were all flabbergasted. "Senior, are you still alive?" The elders from the school of Yinyang were so moved that tears welled up in their eyes. Swish! However, the old man responded to the excited old men from the Yinyang school by slashing out with his saber. Relying on the power of his physical body, although the saber was suppressed, it still contained the might of the saber itself. When combined together, it was still incredibly powerful. Careful! Du Xiaofu, who'd been on high alert this entire time, rushed over. His hand glowed with dazzling violet light as he clenched the heavenly tower of purple gold. Baleful aura and might filled the air, accompanied by the faint roars of dragons and tigers. Wind and thunder resounded in the air as he blocked the saber light with his sword. Whoosh! The saber light and sword light collided, creating a powerful gale that destroyed large swaths of space and mountains. The elders from the school of Yinyang were knocked back. Du Xiaofu had used the heavenly tower of purple gold. He didn't dare be careless. Jiangchen had been at a disadvantage from the start. Even with his powerful physical body, he didn't dare be careless. However, as he summoned the heavenly palace of purple gold, Du Xiaofu could clearly feel that the heavenly palace of purple gold was being suppressed by a strange, invisible energy in this space. The artifact spirit within the heavenly palace of purple gold could not be summoned, but he could use the might of the heavenly palace of purple gold itself. Crack, crack. Amidst the surging saber radiance and sword radiance, the saber collided with the purple gold heavenly tower, emitting light like fireworks. The talisman engravings on the sword and saber were shattering, like meteorites colliding. The surrounding void cracks were also spreading. Du Xiaofu was forced back several steps. The bizarre-looking elder was also forced back, clearly in a sorry state. Starlight rippled from the treasured saber, and if one looked closely, they could see a tiny crack in its surface. It was left behind by Du Xiaofu's heavenly tower of purple gold. However, the crack was very shallow and didn't have much of an effect on the treasured saber. This isn't normal. He's being controlled. It's like he's a puppet. Du Xiaofu frowned, his expression grave. This was most likely an ancient ancestor of the school of Yinyang. He seemed to be under someone's control, like a puppet. He didn't recognize them at all. All that was left of him was ruthlessness and killing intent. His nascent divinity and physical body have been corroded. He's lost his will. Perhaps it has something to do with those demons, said Jiangchen. He'd sensed something, but he couldn't be sure. This is going to be troublesome. Du Xiaofu smiled bitterly, his expression grave. That bizarre-looking elder was most likely an ancient expert of the school of Yinyang. They couldn't just destroy him. Moreover, given the elder's physical strength, if he really wanted to destroy him, even if he and Jiangchen joined forces, they probably wouldn't have much of a chance. Du Xiaofu guessed that even if he and Jiangchen went all out and succeeded, they'd have to pay an enormous price. Jiangchen glanced sideways at Du Xiaofu, as if reading Du Xiaofu's thoughts. Actually, his nascent divinity died long ago. He's just being controlled. He's basically dead, said Jiangchen, knowing the relationship between Du Xiaofu and the school of Yinyang. Actually, his nascent divinity died long ago. He's just being controlled. Seniors, what do you think? Du Xiaofu asked the elders from the school of Yinyang. These were most likely seniors from the school of Yinyang, and even if they were real puppets, with the elders from the school of Yinyang here, with his relationship with the school of Yinyang, he needed to ask for their opinion. Our ancestor has already met with calamity. Let the Rock Emperor make the decision, said one of the old men, his eyes brimming with tears. Chapter 2087. This was an ancient ancestor of the school of Yinyang. He died trying to stop the great calamity of heaven and earth. Living a life worse than death, he'd become one of the living dead. Kill. After a brief delay, the strange old man charged at them again, fearless. His eyes were filled with killing intent as his saber slashed through the air. Du Xiaofu brandished his sword. His purple robes billowed and his hair stood on end. The violet gold heavenly tower met the attack head-on. Du Xiaofu knew that he had no choice but to fight with all his might. There was no way to retreat. Given the strange old man's physical strength, he and Jiangchen could dodge, but the others couldn't. They had no choice but to destroy him. If they joined forces with Jiangchen, they might have a chance, but they'd definitely have to pay a price. Bang, bang, bang. In an instant, Du Xiaofu and the strange old man clashed multiple times, shaking the air. This was a battle of pure physical strength. This kind of battle was definitely going to be powerful. At their level, just their physical strength alone was already terrifying enough. Jiangchen didn't immediately attack. Instead, he seemed to think of something. He said to Qi Jiajun, "Give me a drop of essence blood. Perhaps it'll make the results slightly better." Qi Jiajun didn't hesitate. He formed a hand seal, and yin and yang energies surged from his body. Starlight rippled, and he spat out a drop of essence blood. It filled the air with dazzling light and emanated an extraordinary pressure. Bang, bang. Du Xiaofu and the strange old man clashed again, shattering the space where they collided. Pure physical strength caused such a terrifying commotion. In the distance, Feng Han, Tang Meiling, Chu Kei, and the others trembled with fear. The strange old man's attack was a completely instinctive and subconscious reaction. However, it was as fast as lightning and extremely powerful. It was clear that the strange old man had been extremely powerful when he was alive. A battle of physical strength like this was a test of battle experience. In this aspect, Du Xiaofu was definitely not weak. Along the way, he'd constantly faced off against all sorts of opponents, tempering himself repeatedly. Du Xiaofu's combat experience had been honed to an extremely experienced level. Tang Meiling, Gu Xinyan, Tang Wu, and the others watched the two fighting figures with unbearable shock. It was really hard to imagine that at their level, just their physical bodies actually contained such a terrifying power. Just by raising their hands, they could shatter the void and destroy mountains and rivers. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's physical body was so strong that it was not inferior to the strange old man's physical body. In fact, the purple gold heavenly fault was even stronger than the treasured saber. However, everyone also understood that the strange old man had the body of a sage realm expert. He wouldn't rest until he was dead. It wouldn't be easy to destroy him. At low altitude, the two separated as soon as they made contact. Du Xiaofu's figure retreated a few steps and landed on a towering tree, shattering it into pieces. In the next moment, Du Xiaofu's eyes flashed with a touch of coldness. The corners of his mouth curled up into a sneer, revealing a row of white and neat teeth. At the same time, Du Xiaofu's body suddenly rushed out as the towering tree was shattered. Like a rock flapping its wings, he appeared with a residual shadow. He was as fast as lightning. His sword light pierced through the void. Whoosh! The strange old man's empty and ruthless eyes didn't fluctuate at all. However, he subconsciously tilted his feet. While stabilizing his body, he tilted his body in an arc. He actually avoided Du Xiaofu's sword. Du Xiaofu's sword light swept past the strange old man's tilted shoulder. Waves shattered in the air. However, Du Xiaofu's sword was obviously not a real killing move. The moment the strange old man dodged, a claw mark in his hand fluctuated with golden light. It tore through the void and swept out a pitch-black crack. It was like the sharpest sword. With a supreme, overbearing aura, it directly grabbed the strange old man's throat. This move was very tricky and fierce. It was rich in combat skills and experience. Without the tempering of hundreds of battles, it was difficult to have such a clean attack. The claw mark was very fierce. It rapidly enlarged in the strange old man's eyes. However, just as the fierce and overbearing golden claw mark was about to fall on the strange old man's throat, the old man stood with his saber horizontally. He used the saber in his hand as a shield and directly blocked his throat. Caw-caw! The claw mark fell on the saber. The sound of metal clashing resounded. There was an explosion of fire and starlight fluctuations. Energy ripples visible to the naked eye formed a ring and spread out. Chila! The old man's eyes were listless. However, a finger mark on his left hand had already condensed. It swept directly toward Du Xiaofu's chest. That's really fast. Du Xiaofu was shocked. This old man was too terrifying. Fortunately, he had been paying attention and did not let his guard down. He was also prepared. As his figure rapidly dodged, he clenched the golden claw mark on the old man's saber tightly. He clenched his hand into a fist and slid it down. With the momentum of a thunderbolt, he ruthlessly punched the old man's chest. Bang! The energy in the void made a muffled sound. The fist burst with golden light. The strange old man's body was directly sent flying. Caw-caw! Sounds came from his chest. It seemed like there was the sound of bones breaking. His body also directly flew backward and crashed into the ground. Many people's expressions changed. The series of dazzling exchanges just now was really too thrilling. There was danger everywhere. However, in the end, the Demon King Du Xiaofu gained the upper hand. He once again sent the strange old man flying. However, Du Xiaofu was not happy at all. Instead, waves surged in his heart. His fist was also a little numb and faintly aching. This strange old man, who was very likely an ancestor of the Yin-Yang school, was now a puppet. He was completely relying on his instincts, and yet he was still so strong. The withered old man's physical body was also very strong. If this old man was at his peak, Du Xiaofu felt that it would be difficult for him to gain an advantage over the old man in terms of physical strength. These ancient experts were too strong. However, Du Xiaofu had overlooked one thing. This old man was an ancient saint. He had the body of a saint. Du Xiaofu had not yet set foot in the saint realm, but his physical body was already strong enough to contend with the old man. In fact, he even had the upper hand. If the old man were still alive, he would definitely be the one to be shocked. Boom! The strange old man, who had fallen to the ground, rushed out again. He seemed to have no consciousness at all. He didn't fear death. He was completely fearless. Hiss! However, even as the strange, withered old man charged forward, Jiangxian appeared. He waved his hand, and a drop of blood shot out like a beam of light. Instantly, starlight rippled out, accompanied by the auras of yin and yang. Suddenly, the withered and strange old man seemed to have sensed something, and his lifeless and empty eyes rippled as his figure froze. The drop of blood drilled into the old man's forehead, then disappeared without a trace. At the same time, a shocking scene appeared. The withered and strange old man's figure stopped in the air. His eyes, which were filled with murderous intent, suddenly shone with starlight. His withered face, which was already quite unpleasant, twisted ferociously. A shrill voice came from his mouth. Whoa! This sound was like the howl of a demon. It was ear-piercing and terrifying. It was as if a demon was roaring and struggling. The starlight in the old man's eyes grew brighter and brighter. Yin and yang energies surged out from his body. Strange demonic chi began to leak out from his body. It was as if numerous demons and ghosts were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. They emanated a cold, baleful aura and were incomparably malevolent. They screamed endlessly. But in the end, the demonic chi and phantoms were swept away by the starlight and yin and yang energies. It was as if they had been purified. I'm finally free. It's all up to you now. These words came from the strange old man's mouth. The yin and yang energies around him and the starlight in his eyes faded at the same time. His already withered body began to wither even more, but a smile of relief appeared on his wrinkled face. The old man's body fell to the ground. His aura no longer fluctuated. Senior. The yin-yang elders and disciples, as well as the Qi family's Jun, knelt respectfully around the withered corpse, their eyes moist. An old man sobbed, his voice sorrowful. They'd already confirmed that the withered old man was one of the yin-yang elders who'd entered the heavenly devil battlefield. This elder had been tormented by demonic Qi for a long time, and had only just been released. How painful was that? Senior, rest in peace. Du Xiaofu bowed deeply. This yin-yang elder had been so heroic. Since ancient times, he'd entered the heavenly devil battlefield to resist the world's calamity. He'd been affected by demonic Qi and had been living as a zombie until now. How painful was that? Finally, he'd left behind a sentence of relief. Then, Qi family's Jun and the yin-yang elders and disciples put the elder's corpse into their cosmos bags. They wanted to bring it out of the heavenly devil battlefield and return to the yin-yang school. The saber was an ancient sacred artifact. Qi family's Jun also took it. Everyone continued on their journey. After what they just experienced, they had to be even more careful. But not long after, Du Xiaofu's group encountered danger again. They encountered a group of white skeletons. These skeletons were filled with demonic Qi. Their hollow eye sockets were filled with demonic Qi. Woo-woo. These white skeletons were filled with pitch-black demonic Qi. From afar, it looked like the sky was filled with black fog. Ghostly wails could be heard. The skeletons seemed to have crawled out of hell. The aura of death was overwhelming, making one's heart palpitate and feel ominous. Tang Meiling, Wu Kei, Gu Xinyan, and the others felt their hair stand on end. There were too many of these white skeletons. It was terrifying. Woo-woo. The skeletons let out woo-woo sounds. The aura of death filled the air. Killing intent surged in their eye sockets. They pounced at the group like an army of skeletons. Every skeleton was very powerful and had a shocking aura. There were even many skeletons with shocking auras. They were terrifyingly powerful. Be careful, Du Xiaofu shouted. Golden light burst out from his back. Golden runes swept out as the golden rock wings were activated. The golden rock wings grew from Du Xiaofu's body. It was one with his body and was also Du Xiaofu's original body. In this strange space, it wouldn't be affected too much. Using the golden rock wings, Du Xiaofu was no longer unable to fly. He could flap his wings and soar into the sky. Bang bang. The golden rock wings flapped, shattering a large number of skeletons. The demonic Qi dissipated. Qi. Roar. Feng Han and Du Xiaoyao both reverted to their original forms. There were too many skeletons, and they were too terrifying. They didn't dare to be careless. Chapter 2088. A scorching aura erupted, shaking the clouds and soaring into the heavens. 1,000-meter-long, 5-colored phoenix appeared in the air. This was Feng Han's true form. His body burned with 5-colored flames. With a flap of his wings, the entire sky shook, crushing the skeleton army. In this strange space, Feng Han could only use his physical strength. He couldn't even use techniques like the Phoenix's Inferno Baptism. Inky black runes swept through the air, and the roar of a tiger shook everyone's heart like thunder. The little tiger's evolved form, the dark celestial tiger, flapped its wings and soared into the sky. Black runes soared into the sky, and its roar shook the world. The little tiger flapped its wings, and terrifying waves of energy swept out. Faint golden ripples rose and fell like a tsunami, covering the sky and earth. Raging waves crashed against the shore, shattering large numbers of skeletons. Crack, crack. The tiger waved its claws, and more skeletons were sent flying and crushed. Jiangchen didn't use his golden growler, but he didn't hold back. He slaughtered a path through the skeleton army. Everyone else also attacked with all their might. The great battle shook the mountains, and muffled booms rang out endlessly. The aura of death filled the sky, and everyone trembled in fear. Woo-woo. Within the skeleton army, a pure black skeleton with a pair of wings on its back leaped out. Its aura was the most powerful among all the skeletons. The black skeleton fixed its eyes on Du Xiaofu. Its claws tore through the air and extended towards Du Xiaofu. The claw mark left behind a pitch-black fissure, and dark light devoured the void. A saint-level skeleton? Du Xiaofu sucked in a cold breath. This winged skeleton's aura wasn't much weaker than the yin-yang ancestor from before. Du Xiaofu didn't retreat. Tang Meiling, Du Xiaoyao, and Gu Xinyan were all present. If he dodged, they'd be the ones to suffer. He had no choice but to resist. Du Xiaofu summoned the purple-gold heavenly tower and pushed his physical strength to the limit. His sword stirred up wind and thunder, wanting to destroy the pure black skeleton with the wings on its back. The sword light stood on the pure black claw. Although this sword was only Du Xiaofu's pure physical strength and the power of the purple-gold heavenly palace itself, there were probably not many people below the Saint Plane who could withstand it. However, the pure black skeleton was able to resist it with its withered 5 claws. Even if a cultivator of the Saint Realm was not suppressed, they would not dare to take Du Xiaofu's sword head-on. It was enough to shatter a palm. However, this pure black skeleton's 5 claws only left a mark. Its body was sent flying backwards, but then it flapped its wings and charged towards Du Xiaofu again without fear of death. It seemed to be targeting Du Xiaofu alone. I can't crush you. Du Xiaofu couldn't avoid it, and he couldn't delay it either. He let out a deep roar and used all of his strength. Golden light filled his eyes as he slashed out with his sword, shattering the void. Bam! 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 Du Xiaofu's left fist was like a star, constantly bombarding it like meteorites. The pure black skeleton was very strong. It was the strongest existence in this skeleton army. However, this black skeleton encountered Du Xiaofu. Coupled with Du Xiaofu's purple-gold heavenly palace, this skeleton was a dark, dead creature after all. It didn't have much intelligence and couldn't withstand Du Xiaofu's violent bombardment. Kacha! Cracking noises could be heard from the pure black skeleton's body. Half of its wings were cut off by Du Xiaofu's purple-gold palace. Immediately, the wings wobbled and let out a series of howling noises. Die! Du Xiaofu's purple-gold heavenly palace shone with dazzling violet light. He took advantage of the opportunity to slice the pure black skeleton's neck in half. The black skeleton's head and skeleton fell to the ground, still letting out strange cries. It seemed to want to crawl back to its feet, but then it was trampled by the chaotic skeleton army, drowning it in the sea of skeletons. Charge! Shouted Du Xiaofu. He used all of his strength, forming a triangle with Jiangchen, Feng Han, and the others. They slaughtered a path through the skeleton army and fled with all their might, only daring to stop when they were far away. Too terrifying. Some people felt their hair stand on end. The skeleton army seemed to have crawled out of the depths of hell. Fortunately, they hadn't caught up. Some students from the school of Yin-Yang and Hahuan school coughed up blood. Their bodies were riddled with injuries, some of them extremely serious. Du Xiaofu's face was pale. Although he'd used his physical strength and hadn't used his profound energy, his body was clearly exhausted and weak. This kind of weakness was even more serious than the exhaustion of his profound energy. This place is too frightening. Tang Meiling gasped for breath. Her chest heaved up and down, adding to her charm and allure. Let's rest for a while, Du Xiaofu said. The skeletons hadn't chased them, so they'd escaped disaster. Everyone needed to rest. He needed to rest as well. Just now, his attack had left Du Xiaofu feeling somewhat weak. In this kind of weakness, precious medicines and medicinal pills were useless. After that, Du Xiaofu found a high elevation to rest on top of a mountain. In this strange place, danger lurked in every direction. Hiding in a secluded area might not be safe. A place with a broad view might actually be safer. Those who needed to rest were resting, and those who needed to treat their injuries were recuperating. Their expressions were all grave. This strange place was too dangerous, and there was killing intent everywhere. Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged, his expression grave. This place was too strange. First, they disappeared without a trace. Now, they were surrounded by killing intent. Whoosh, whoosh. About an hour later, quite a few figures appeared in the sky. They attracted the attention of Du Xiaofu, Jiangchen, and the others, who were resting with their eyes closed. The beasts of the beast region. Du Xiaofu opened the corner of his eyes and sensed the aura of the beast race from many of the figures. Judging from their condition, it seemed that they had not encountered the terrifying skeleton army. The beasts of the beast region also sensed Du Xiaofu, Jiangchen, and the others. They watched from afar, then left without hesitation. They didn't approach at all. A moment later, more figures appeared nearby. This time, they came from the direction Du Xiaofu and the others had encountered the skeleton army. There were about 20 figures in this group. They looked a bit wretched, and quite a few of them were injured. It's the Demon King, Du Xiaofu, and the others. There's also Feng Han of the Phoenix clan and Qi Jiajun of the Yinyang school. These people recognized Du Xiaofu and the others from afar. Their gazes flickered, but they didn't dare approach. It's too dangerous here. There's killing intent everywhere, said a middle-aged man. His injuries weren't light. His cultivation was at the domain realm, and his eyes shone with lingering fear. Not long ago, they'd encountered a deadly situation and lost many people. They'd escaped death by the skin of their teeth. The old man in the lead had eyes as deep as the sea. His strength was near the top of the group. He gazed at the towering figure in front of him and said, "This is a very strange place. But I believe that as long as we get close to the center, we'll be fine." Chapter 2089. I'm afraid that we'll die in this strange place before we reach it. Some people were worried. Not long ago, they had over 200 people, but now, only 20 or so were left. If not for their good luck, they would not have been able to withstand the danger. Hearing this, many people hung their heads in dejection. Everyone knew that the next time they encountered danger, they would not be as lucky as the previous times if they were not so lucky. That Demon King Du Xiaofu and the others should also be going forward. If we can follow them, we'll be safe, said a fat middle-aged man, his eyes shining as he looked at the mountain in the distance. If they could follow the Demon King Du Xiaofu, they would definitely be safe. Forget it. Why would that Demon King care about us? We don't want to provoke him. Some people shook their heads. They were only a group of people from a small faction and loose cultivators. Their cultivation was far inferior to the Demon King's. In the eyes of the Demon King Du Xiaofu, they were just nameless pawns. Why would the great rock emperor, the Demon King Du Xiaofu, protect them for no reason and bring them along to be a burden? Hearing such words, many people were secretly disappointed. White-brow hermit, didn't you always say that you and the Demon King Du Xiaofu were brothers? A middle-aged man looked at an old man in the crowd and raised his eyebrows. Hearing this, everyone's gazes fell on the old man. The old man's hair was gray, and even his eyebrows were white. Hearing this, the old man's face twitched. He looked at the middle-aged man and said, "Back in the divine domain, I did indeed have a brotherly relationship with the Rock Emperor. He even called me elder brother." This white-haired and white-browed old man was White-brow Hermit. Back in the divine domain, he had interacted with Du Xiaofu. White-brow Hermit had long entered the heavenly fiend battlefield, and his luck had been pretty good. Not long ago, before the eternal tomb opened, White-brow Hermit saw Du Xiaofu in the crowd. However, at this time, the Demon King Du Xiaofu had already soared into the sky like the sun. His fame shook the world, and he was no longer the immature youth from God's domain. The white-browed hermit wanted to go forward and greet him, but he held back. He knew very well that the difference between him and the youth was too great. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. The Grand Rock Emperor, the young clan leader of the golden-winged Great Rocks, a Nirvana Grandmaster. How could he remember this old fellow? He had probably forgotten about him long ago. Haha, Demon King Du Xiaofu called you Elder Brother Whitebrow. What a joke. Who do you think you are, Whitebrow? Do you think your Heaven's Will sect is one of the 9 great clans? You overestimate yourself. If the Heaven's Will sect is nothing, then what are you? The middle-aged man who had just spoken sneered. He looked at Whitebrow Hermit with suspicion and disdain. I'm speaking the truth. Many people who were in the divine domain back then can attest to it. Whitebrow Hermit said firmly. He was not lying. This was the truth. However, at this moment, Whitebrow Hermit's position in this group of people was very low. His words did not carry much weight. A mere Heaven's Will sect dares to speak so highly of themselves. The middle-aged man looked at Whitebrow Hermit with disdain and contempt. He sneered and said, "It's easy to prove yourself. The Demon King Du Xiaofu is right in front of you. Go and see if he will call you Elder Brother. I'm afraid he won't even bother with you." Haha. Whitebrow Hermit's face twitched. Although his cultivation was not high, he had lived for so long and had never done anything dishonorable. He was upright and upright. When had he ever been thought of in such an unbearable manner? This was a humiliation to him and to Heaven's Will sect. However, Whitebrow Hermit knew that whether it was Heaven's Will sect or himself, they were nothing compared to these people. Although the Demon King Du Xiaofu was right in front of him, it was as Whitebrow Hermit had said. With the current disparity between them, the Demon King Du Xiaofu might have long forgotten about him. Since you look down on us, you can go and seek refuge with others. There's no need for you to stay with us. An old man who stood at the front of the group spoke. He cast an indifferent glance at the white-browed hermit. That's right. Our small temple can't accommodate a great Buddha. Let's go to the big temple. A middle-aged man with a gloomy face said. These people did not think highly of Whitebrow Hermit in the first place. With Whitebrow Hermit's cultivation and strength, he would only be a burden if he stayed with them. Whitebrow Hermit looked at the group of people. Suddenly, a smile appeared on his twitching face. However, there was a hint of helplessness and bitterness in that smile. Haha! Whitebrow Hermit laughed loudly and said, Whitebrow, know that I'm not strong enough. I won't disturb you guys any longer. Whitebrow Hermit did not force them. These people clearly wanted to chase away some burdens. He did not want to squeeze his way in. It could be considered as him preserving his last bit of dignity and pride. Whoosh whoosh. Suddenly, there was the sound of air being torn apart in front of them. Many figures flew in a straight line from the top of the mountain. With a few leaps, they landed in front of the group of people. This group of people was mainly composed of young people. Every single one of these young people was divine and extraordinary. They were all invisibly dazzling existences. In the lead was a purple-robed young man. He had a resolute face. His black hair flowed to his shoulders. His eyes were so bright that no one could look straight at him. There were also many women. They were all peerless beauties. They were devastatingly beautiful and could charm all living things. There was no fluctuation of aura from these people. However, the formless aura that permeated the air caused everyone's legs to tremble involuntarily. Their primordial spirits felt like they were about to freeze. Demon King Du Xiaofu. An old man was trembling. His lips were trembling. The Demon King Du Xiaofu and the others had actually arrived in front of them. Whitebrow Hermit's face was blank. He looked at the familiar figure. The aura caused him to tremble. It shocked him even more. At that moment, Whitebrow Hermit was filled with anticipation. After all, the infamous young man who had shocked the world had arrived in front of him. However, at the same time, Whitebrow Hermit told himself deep in his heart that with the young man's current status and identity, there was already a world of difference between them. It was not strange that he had forgotten about him. Brother Whitebrow. When the familiar voice echoed in Whitebrow Hermit's ears, he felt as if he had been struck by lightning. He felt as if electricity was surging through his body. The familiar purple-robed young man had called him Brother Whitebrow. Whitebrow Hermit could not help but tremble. For some reason, the white-browed hermit felt like bursting into tears. That ferocious and awe-inspiring youth who illuminated the world hadn't forgotten him. He still called him elder brother. Big Rock Emperor. White Brow Hermit's lips trembled. His body trembled, and he looked emotional. Brother Whitebrow, you don't have to be so polite. You're treating me like an outsider. Just call me little brother. Du Xiaofu smiled. He had arrived here the moment he saw Whitebrow Hermit. He had met Whitebrow Hermit in the Divine Dominion. Du Xiaofu could not forget him. You have a lot of enemies. The Heaven Saber sect and the dragons are all terrifying. However, if you meet an enemy now, I, Whitebrow Hermit, will not be careless. Du Xiaofu still remembered those words. He was still moved. All right, Brother Xiaofu, Whitebrow Hermit's voice trembled. He gradually regained his senses. He was so emotional that he did not know what to say. Tears welled up in his eyes. This place is very dangerous. Brother Whitebrow, why don't you come with us? We can take care of each other, Du Xiaofu said to Whitebrow Hermit. All right. Whitebrow Hermit said all right 3 times in a row. A brilliant smile appeared on his face. At that moment, he was feeling extremely happy. Then, Du Xiaofu, Jiangxin, Feng Han, and the others left. From the beginning to the end, they did not even look at the people around them. Whitebrow Hermit did not look at those people again. He followed behind them. He waved his sleeves, his white hair, and his white eyebrows fluttered. The surroundings were completely silent. The 20 or so people were as silent as cicadas in winter. Under that kind of aura, everything in their bodies froze. They were unable to regain their senses even after a long time. Whitebrow Hermit really does have a close relationship with the Demon King, Du Xiaofu. After a long time, someone said this. The Demon King, Du Xiaofu, had called Whitebrow Hermit brother. How deep was their relationship? Hearing this, the faces of the people who were most hostile towards Whitebrow Hermit twitched violently. Their expressions were extremely unsightly. So you're saying that you haven't encountered the skeleton army? Du Xiaofu asked Whitebrow Hermit. From Whitebrowed Hermit, Du Xiaofu learned that Whitebrowed Hermit and company had encountered many dangers along the way, but they had not encountered the terrifying skeleton army. Du Xiaofu had clearly seen Whitebrow Hermit's group come from the direction they had encountered the skeleton army. No, Whitebrow Hermit shook his head. Seeing Whitebrow Hermit shake his head, Feng Han pondered for a moment and said, It seems that not only will people quietly separate, but the dangers inside will also change at any time. Du Xiaofu took a deep breath and looked at the towering colossus before him. He said to everyone, Be careful. Continue forward. At least we're getting closer and closer to that place. Everyone continued forward, heading towards their destination. There's something strange up ahead. Just as everyone was about to leave the valley, Feng Han sighed and looked ahead. He seemed to have discovered something. Hearing Feng Han's words, Du Xiaofu, Jiangxin, and the others stopped in their tracks. However, the place ahead was very calm. There was nothing strange about it. It's just up ahead, Feng Han continued, his gaze fixed ahead. Du Xiaofu's expression changed slightly. In this strange place, his mind was useless and his pulse spirit couldn't be used. He hadn't discovered anything, but he believed in Feng Han. Everyone, be careful. Du Xiaofu indicated that those who weren't strong enough shouldn't follow too closely in case something unexpected happened. I'll go take a look. As soon as Feng Han said this, he leapt off the ground. Du Xiaofu, Jiangxin, and the others glanced at each other and followed. Chapter 2090. After standing up a few times, they arrived at a wide, flat area near the exit of the mountain range. Jiangxin seemed to sense something. He came to a stop, his gaze fixed in front of him. Du Xiaofu stopped as well. His intuition told him that something was off. This strange place, which had been in a state of complete decay and desolation, had suddenly vanished. Something's off. Du Xiaofu was surprised. His eyebrows arched, and a look of vigilance appeared on his face. In a place like this, where danger lurked on every side, if one wasn't careful, one would most likely suffer a calamity. Feng Han stopped not too far away. This was the exit of the mountain range. It was completely flat and barren. There was nothing strange about it. Looking ahead, Feng Han's eyes rippled. He slowly stepped forward. We have to be careful. Du Xiaofu said. This place seemed ordinary, but it definitely wasn't simple. He didn't know what Feng Han had sensed, but he had to be careful. Feng Han looked back and nodded at Du Xiaofu. How could Feng Han not know that danger lurked on every side? But at this moment, that feeling was too strong for him. It was like something was calling out to him, resonating with him. He sensed that there was definitely something up ahead, something that had something to do with him. Whoosh! Feng Han took a deep breath, then took a dozen steps forward. He looked ahead, as if pondering something. Then he waved his hand and stretched it forward. As Feng Han stretched out his hand, the space in front of him suddenly rippled. A resplendent, five-colored light suddenly appeared, instantly enveloping the flat area in front of him. Boom! The five-colored light was filled with flames and dazzling talisman inscriptions. An extremely terrifying sovereign beast aura spread out, soaring into the sky. The Phoenix Clan. Du Xiaofu was astonished. He sensed the aura of a sovereign beast from the Phoenix Clan. No wonder Feng Han was the first to discover this place. It had something to do with the Phoenix Clan. Whoosh, whoosh. Du Xiaofu and Jiangchen landed beside Feng Han. What's going on? This is the Nirvana life and death boundary. It was set up by the experts of our clan when they encountered a strong enemy and knew that they were powerless. Once the Nirvana life and death boundary is set up, it will seal the enemy in the void, making it difficult for outsiders to intervene. Feng Han looked at the Nirvana life and death boundary in front of him. His eyes rippled, revealing a faint sadness. He said, "Once the Nirvana life and death boundary is unable to obliterate the enemy, we can only perish together." A five-colored flame surfaced on Feng Han's palm. It gently landed on the five-colored light as he said, "This Nirvana life and death world can only be reopened by members of my tribe. If an outsider tries to forcefully open it, it will be completely destroyed." Walala! As soon as Feng Han spoke, the five-colored light covering the valley began to ripple violently. In the end, the five-colored flames transformed into snowflakes and disappeared before Du Xiaofu and Jiangchen's eyes. When the five-colored light disappeared, the vast valley in front of them suddenly distorted. The valley disappeared, and a huge mountain appeared in its place. At this moment, the three of them were standing at the top of the mountain, which seemed to reach into the clouds. In front of them was a colossal creature that was hundreds of meters tall. It was covered in five-colored feathers and seemed to be in a deep sleep. A faintly discernible pressure emanated from its enormous body, causing Du Xiaofu's spirit to fluctuate. The true body of the Saint Stage Phoenix. Du Xiaofu and Jiangchen looked at each other, their eyes filled with shock and their mouths agape. To think that there was such a huge expert of the Phoenix clan in this place. Greetings, ancestor. When the colossal body of the Phoenix appeared, Feng Han's body trembled. He respectfully knelt on one knee, five-colored light surging in his eyes, indescribably sorrowful. Chi, suddenly, as if it had heard Feng Han shout. The eyes of the Phoenix's body that was in a deep slumber trembled slightly before it slowly opened its eyes. The feathers on its body glowed, and five-colored flames filled the air. Its wings spread out, spanning more than 1,000 meters. Boom! The air trembled. The colossal phoenix flapped its wings and took up residence on the mountain peak. Walala! Five-colored flames covered the sky and filled the air. An ancient and desolate aura surged into the heavens, illuminating the entire sky. A terrifying pressure spread throughout this ancient world. The colossal phoenix's body soared into the sky. Its enormous eyes seemed to contain two seas of fire, bottomless and boundless. So powerful. Du Xiaofu and Jiangchen were both shocked. The ancient pressure was so strong that it froze the space around them. When they looked into the eyes of the phoenix, their primordial spirits and celestial qi felt like they were about to be incinerated. Woo! At the same time, a terrifying cry rang out. Pitch-black demonic qi filled the phoenix's eyes. Black fog rose from its dazzling, five-colored body, gradually covering it in a layer of pitch-black color. It's a demon. Du Xiaofu's expression changed. Instantly, his expression turned grave, and he became vigilant. You can't destroy me at all. Kiki, submit. Why struggle so bitterly? The sinister voice seemed to come from the depths of hell. Demonic chi permeated the air, suppressing the blazing aura of the five-colored flames. The air was cold and gloomy. When Du Xiaofu heard this voice, his soul trembled violently. In the distance, the little tiger, Gu Xinyan, and the others raised their heads and gazed at the towering mountain peak in front of them. The terrifying phoenix flapped its wings, and demonic chi filled the air. Their hearts trembled, and they couldn't help but feel a chill run down their spines. Puny demon, what right do you have? At the same time, the faint cry of a phoenix resounded in the sky. Coo! The cry of the phoenix was faint at first, but it gradually grew louder. Then, an ancient and mysterious rune suddenly gushed out from the huge body of the phoenix wrapped in demon chi. As the five-colored flame became even brighter, it also became more violent. Flames poured down from the void, like a five-colored rain of fire. Boom! In that instant, an enormous, ancient, scorching pressure silently filled the air from the phoenix's body, which seemed to blot out the sun. When they sensed the power of the scorching pressure, Du Xiaofu and Jiangchen looked at each other. Their expressions changed, and they both retreated. Senior. Only Feng Han knelt on the ground. He raised his head, grief surging from his eyes. The corners of his eyes were moist, and his voice was mournful. It was heart-wrenching. To be able to see a descendant of my clan and have a successor, I am overjoyed. I leave this world in your hands. An ancient voice rang out from the enormous phoenix's body. The five-colored flames on its body burned hotter and hotter, incinerating large swaths of the void. Pitch-black cracks in space began to appear. Chapter 2091. The dense demonic aura sent chills down one's spine. Even if you die, you will be reborn. The ancient voice rang out. Blazing five-colored flames soared into the sky. No matter how much the demonic aura struggled, it was unable to break free. When the five-colored flames engulfed the demonic aura, it let out miserable shrieks and the cries of ghosts and gods before turning into smoke. Wuru! The cries of ghosts and gods seemed to come from the depths of hell. The overwhelming demonic aura dissipated under the five-colored flames. The huge phoenix's body was also burning. It was a type of physical combustion that could be seen with the naked eye. When its body turned into firewood, the flames soared into the sky. Resplendent talisman runes filled the sky, dyeing the sky with five-colored divine light and burning the entire sky. Ancestor. Feng Han knelt on the ground, his eyes trembling in grief. Du Xiaofu bowed, his eyes filled with reverence. The ancestor of the phoenix race had sacrificed himself to perish together with the evil demon. Finally, the billowing demonic aura dissipated. The cries of ghosts and gods no longer appeared. The last bone of the huge phoenix body had turned into ashes. The towering five-colored flames were like the most resplendent fireworks. But now, it had come to an end. Accompanied by a sorrowful war song, it caused one's heart to be unable to calm down for a long time. It will be difficult for anyone in the outside world to become a saint. It will be hard to escape this calamity. The ancient voice reverberated. A streak of five-colored light shot into Feng Han's forehead like lightning. The descendants of my race will do their best to stop this calamity. When the ancient voice disappeared, the last streak of five-colored flames in the sky disappeared. Everything dimmed down, leaving behind a withered world. It was as though countless volcanoes had erupted. Du Xiaofu looked at Feng Han with his eyes tightly shut. The last streak of five-colored light should have been left behind by the ancestor of the phoenix race. It was a kind of opportunity. After a moment, Feng Han opened his eyes. They were flickering with light. Are you all right? Du Xiaofu asked Feng Han. I'm fine. The ancestor of my race left behind a final strand of sacred will. He told me some things, but he didn't leave behind much. Feng Han shook his head and said to Du Xiaofu, Sacred will. Du Xiaofu's eyes moved slightly. The 36 feathers of the rock had been left behind by a predecessor of the golden-winged giant rocks. There were 72 feathers in total. It was said that if one gathered all 72 feathers of the rock, they might be able to obtain a wisp of divine will that could help them enter the Saint Plane. Up ahead is the Eternal Tomb. There are countless unforeseen events within. The great calamity of the world will begin from there. Feng Han pointed to the distance ahead, at the gigantic object that stood tall in this ancient world. Only, that place was hazy, surrounded by mist. Even though it was becoming clearer and clearer, it still couldn't be seen clearly. From the looks of it, many mysteries can be solved there. Du Xiaofu pondered. From the space of the divine domain to the heavenly devil battlefield, it seemed that many mysteries would be solved in the Tomb of Eternity. After a while, the group continued forward. "Those people have been following us," said the little tiger. Behind them, there were people following them from afar, but they didn't dare to get close. It was the group of people who had been with the white-browed hermit not long ago. Even though their primordial spirits were suppressed here, their words all fell into Du Xiaofu's ears. Du Xiaofu ignored the group and continued forward. The gigantic object that stood tall in front of them seemed to be getting closer and closer. However, they didn't know when it had started. Everywhere it passed, there were many skeletons on the ground, leaving behind many traces of a great battle. Deep pits, broken peaks, and mottled ruins were filled with an ancient aura. There were bloodstains that had been left from ancient times until now. They were still very bright and emitted brilliant light. "This is the blood of a Saint Plane expert," said Feng Han. He inspected a place. There were a few drops of blood that had been left behind by a Saint Plane expert. They were filled with light, but they had lost some kind of energy. Even though they were brilliant, they were already worthless. "This is a battlefield. There was a great battle," said Qi Jiajun. There were more and more white bones below. He had obtained a cosmos sac, and the space was becoming more and more oppressive. There were all kinds of huge skeletons in the distance. Without flesh and blood, the eerie white bones gave off a chill that made one's heart palpitate. "Senior Du, Senior Gu." In the distance, the students of Tianwu Academy were shouting loudly, as though they had made a huge discovery. Du Xiaofu, Gu Xinyan, Tang Wu, and the others immediately rushed over. An ancient, mottled wall was stained with fresh blood. There was a corpse sitting cross-legged there. It hadn't turned into a skeleton yet, but its entire body was withered. Its hair and face were covered in dust, and there was a broken axe beside it. It didn't emit any light, resembling an ordinary metal. However, there were many bloodstains on it. On the shoulder of this skeleton, there was a faint light flickering on the dust-covered, ragged robe that was half covered by the dry hair and half covered by it. Gu Xinyan, Tang Wu, Wu Kei, and a few other students of Tianwu Academy had a faint glow emanating from their shoulders, fluctuating with mysterious runes. That was the emblem of Tianwu Academy. Every single student of Tianwu Academy had one, and it would activate after dripping a drop of blood on it. It was the symbol of Tianwu Academy, and it could be used for one's entire life. As long as one was within a certain distance, they would be able to sense one another. Du Xiaofu had one as well. Wu Kei squatted down and respectfully peeled off the hair covering the shoulder of the corpse. A layer of dust stirred up, and the emblem flickered, emanating mysterious runes. Tianwu Academy's emblem. When the emblem appeared, Du Xiaofu's eyes flickered. It was the emblem of Tianwu Academy. A glow flickered in Du Xiaofu's palm. This was another emblem, Du Xiaofu's personal emblem. It was the symbol of Tianwu Academy, and Du Xiaofu had always kept it by his side. To Du Xiaofu, Tianwu Academy was his second home. The image of Vice School head Zhuge was still fresh in his mind, and he couldn't forget it. "It's an ancestor of our Tianwu Academy." When the emblem appeared on the shoulder of the corpse, Gu Xinyan, Tang Wu, Wu Kei, and the others bowed solemnly with reverence. Tianwu Academy. Du Xiaofu wasn't surprised. Gu Xinyan and the others had already said that an ancestor of Tianwu Academy had appeared in the heavenly devil battlefield. The corpse before him was indeed an ancestor of Tianwu Academy, and the emblem on his shoulder couldn't be wrong. It was activated by dripping a drop of blood on it, and it could be used for one's entire life. At this moment, Du Xiaofu was astonished. Tianwu Academy had indeed existed since ancient times, and just like what Qi Yeshi had said, it had a great history. Walala! All of a sudden, the surroundings trembled violently, and the ground trembled, producing a bizarre sound. Woo! In that instant, a bone-chilling shriek resounded. Be careful! Du Xiaofu bellowed as he scanned his surroundings. Gu Xinyan, Tang Wu, and Wu Kei immediately went on their guard. Chapter 2092. Woo Woo! A shrill cry reverberated in the void, resounding throughout the void. The void was twisting, and sometimes it was collapsing. The river of stars was flowing. This ancient world seemed to have come alive. It was no longer a scene of desolation. There were buildings, palaces, rivers, and mountains. There were spiritual birds and auspicious beasts. It was a scene of peace. In an instant, demonic energy covered the sky like clouds. Clusters of demonic energy seeped into the void and covered the light. It was as if night had arrived. Woo woo! Evil spirits and demonic beasts appeared. The smell was pungent and unpleasant. Wherever they passed, cities were reduced to ashes, and the mountains and rivers of one country after another collapsed, turning into rubble. Broken walls and ruined buildings. Rivers of blood flowed everywhere. Corpses were everywhere. Some creatures turned into evil spirits and demonic beasts and continued to destroy the next city. Ah! Mournful cries reverberated. The old, weak, women, and children were sobbing. Wherever the evil spirits passed, the blood turned black. Corpses piled up. Not a single creature was left, including the young and old. It was incomparably miserable. This scene seemed to be happening right before their eyes. Du Xiaofu, Gu Xinyan, Tang Wu, Qi Jiajun, and Feng Han felt as if they were experiencing it themselves. It's too miserable. Gu Xinyan, Wu Kei, and the others lamented. Countless people died miserably. Not even the elderly and children were spared. This was destruction. Rivers were turned into rivers of blood. Mountains were dyed in blood. How miserable was this? Demonic shadows appeared and devoured the creatures of an entire city. Mountains and rivers were torn apart and cities collapsed. Billions of creatures were turned into a bloody mist. Mournful cries reverberated through the world and shook the 9 heavens. It was too miserable. This was the destruction of everything. Mournful cries reverberated through the world. The souls of the living were unwilling to accept this. Some souls howled and did not dissipate. Wherever the evil spirits passed, the world turned into purgatory. These bastards! Let's go all out. The white-browed hermit shouted. His eyes were scarlet red. His aura surged as he charged at the evil spirits in front of him. However, that was only an illusion. A real illusion, but it was not completely an illusion. The evil spirits merely glared at the white-browed hermit and made him vomit blood. Be careful, this is an illusion. Don't act rashly, Du Xiaofu shouted. Rumble. Suddenly, the sound of war drums resounded like heavenly drums and heavy hammers. In the distance, there were countless figures flying through the air. There were battleships sailing through, and there were living beings setting off to battle. As those figures approached the warship, many of them had flashing badges on their shoulders. On the huge warship, there were also badges emitting resplendent light. They are the ancestors of our Tianwu Academy. Gu Xinyan, Wu Kei, Tang Wu, and the others exclaimed in shock. The massive warship and silhouette were from Tianwu Academy. Kill. Kill these demon bastards. Someone riding a powerful demonic beast shouted loudly. Light overflowed into the sky, and killing intent filled the air. Energy surged, and battle intent overflowed into the sky as they charged into the evil spirit army. Kill. The warships shone one after another, releasing resplendent and dazzling energy that could bombard the demonic fiend beasts. Kill. On the warships and demonic beasts, many figures slaughtered their way out. Crazy winds howled, heaven and earth collapsed, shaking the mountains and rivers, making the world tremble. Pong, pong, pong. Evil spirits and demonic beasts were collapsing, but the ancestors of Tianwu Academy were falling as well. Some of them crumbled, turning into a bloody mist. The warships crumbled into pieces. Kill. Fight these demon bastards to the death. An expert detonated himself along with the evil spirits. With his life as the price, He composed a sorrowful war song. Such a scene was happening right before their eyes. It was hard to tell whether it was reality or an illusion. Du Xiaofu, Jiang Shen, and Feng Han clenched their fists tightly as they watched on. The eyes of Gu Xinyan, Wu Kei, Tang Wu, and the others were already wet. Qi La, demonic beasts pierced through the void, and the warships were torn apart. Many figures were shattered from the impact. Demonic aura surged, tearing the firmament apart. It emitted a terrifying shockwave, and the stench of blood filled the air. "Kill these demon bastards!" An old man roared. His eyes were bloodshot as he charged fearlessly at the evil spirits. However, there were too many evil spirits, and they were too powerful. These evil spirits engulfed and devoured countless living beings. Wherever they passed, life was extinguished. Blood dyed the path, and it was a tragic scene. Wails filled the place, and corpses were strewn everywhere. The old, weak, women, and children were also killed. Such a scene seemed like an illusion, but it made the eyes of Du Xiaofu, Feng Han, Qi Jiajun, and the others turn red. Pong, pong, pong. The battle was intense. Raging flames surged, and runes soared into the sky, shocking everyone. "Lowly creatures, you won't be able to stop me." The demonic voice reverberated, and it was very cold. It didn't put living beings in its eyes, and it was filled with disdain. Qi La, demonic claws tore through the void, and the demonic aura was as black as ink, killing many old people. This was too terrifying. Such demonic aura was difficult to deal with. It could shatter the universe, tear everything apart, and destroy the sun. No living being could withstand it, and it made people despair. Countless living beings were being destroyed. Mountains and rivers collapsed, and corpses were strewn everywhere. The world turned dark, and it made people shudder. Wherever the evil spirits passed, flesh and cities were destroyed, and it turned into a purgatory on earth. Wails of agony filled the world, and the living beings were plunged into misery. It was a tragic sight. Du Xiaofu knew that it was an illusion, but as if he was in the same situation, he clenched his fists tightly. Walala! The distorted space in the surroundings crumbled, and the terrifying illusion gradually dissipated. Wu, however, the surroundings were still dark, and the demonic aura covered the sky. "Those are the ancestors of our Tianwu Academy. They are all dead," Tang Wu said with a trembling voice. "Is that real or an illusion?" Wu Kei's eyes were moist. Countless living beings were plunged into misery, and the mountains and rivers were shattered. Countless experts of Tianwu Academy were killed, and corpses were strewn all over the place. If this was real, how tragic and tragic would it be? Ka. Suddenly, the eerie white bones on the ground began to wriggle. Tainted by demonic aura, they gathered together, as though they were coming to life. Wu! The cries of ghosts and gods resounded in the air, causing one's soul to tremble. The ground cracked, and demonic aura surged out. The ground cracked, and the mountains split apart. Amidst the overflowing demonic aura, countless white skeletons that were tainted by demonic aura crawled out, emitting a terrifying glow. Not long after, as far as everyone's eyes could see, these strange and terrifying white skeletons were already densely packed together, seemingly endless. The white skeletons let out weird cries, and their killing intent soared into the sky. Pong! Tang Wu struck one of the white skeletons, but he didn't manage to shatter it. He only sent it flying. Following which, the broken white skeletons gathered together once again, letting out weird cries. "This isn't an illusion, it's real," Tang Wu exclaimed. "Be careful." Du Xiaofu waved his purple sleeves, and his face turned grim. He didn't expect such a sudden change. "Ah!" Miserable cries rang out. In the distance, the group of people who were with the white-browed hermit were torn apart by the white skeletons, and their blood splattered all over the ground. Chapter 2093. This time, their luck did not allow them to escape. They were trapped. "Help! Demon King, Du Xiaofu, help! White-brow hermit, help! Seeing that we are on the same journey, please save me." Ah, the screams were ear-piercing. These people did not have much strength to resist. Du Xiaofu did not interfere. His expression was calm, and he did not even look at them. There was no reason for him to save this group of people. Du Xiaofu was not a good person. Moreover, they were in big trouble now. White-brow Hermit looked at these people from afar. There was not much emotion in his eyes. These white skeletons were getting closer. There were even many huge beast bones. They were hundreds of feet long and emitted a terrifying light. Demonic chi filled the sky. Their auras were very powerful. Not good. We are surrounded, Chi Jejun said. He looked at the dense and strange white skeletons. With everyone being suppressed, there was no way for them to escape. Moreover, from the auras of these strange white skeletons, they were definitely very powerful. Let's fight and open a path. Feng Han's eyes were burning with passion. Open a path, Chi Jejun said in a low voice. His eyes were shining with starlight. The group also cleared a path for the army of skeletons that they had encountered not long ago. Woo! A white skeleton rushed over quickly. Demonic chi lingered around it. Its withered hand bones were curved like sharp steel blades and came at Du Xiaofu. Bang! Du Xiaofu punched out. Golden light rippled and shattered the white skeleton from its sharp hand bones to its entire body, turning it into dust. These white skeletons are very powerful. This place is too strange. Du Xiaofu frowned. These white skeletons were even stronger than the army of skeletons not long ago. There were many times more of them. Many of them had powerful auras. He was not afraid, but there were others around. If the demon heart does not die, then die. Such a voice rang out. It was not loud and sounded like a middle-aged man at most. Woo-woo! Hearing such a voice, those white skeletons that were rushing over suddenly stopped for some reason. Their cries and howls became even more ear-piercing, and their continuous roars became even more terrifying. This sudden change alarmed Du Xiaofu. He immediately turned his gaze in the direction of the voice. Behind them, the withered corpse of the Tianwu Academy ancestor had started glowing, following which, ka-ka sounds could be heard from the bones in his body. The withered corpse seemed to have come to life and started moving. Then, under everyone's astonished gazes, the shriveled corpse picked up the half-axe and stood up. A dazzling light flashed in the originally dry and empty eye sockets in the cheekbones. Kill. The withered skeleton was holding half of an axe. In an instant, it was as if it was injected with vitality. Its entire body glowed, and a vigorous aura surged. Suddenly, it slashed towards the dense number of axes in front of it. This was a corpse. It had clearly been dead for many years, and there was no sign of life in its body. However, at this moment, the axe unleashed the most terrifying power. It sliced through the void and shattered the earth. An enormous ravine extended into the distance. Pong, pong, pong. The earth cracked, and the mountains trembled. Rocks flew everywhere, and the white skeletons on both sides were crushed into dust. How powerful! Jiangchen, Feng Han, and the others were shocked. It was just a corpse, but it actually possessed such terrifying strength. Du Xiaofu was even more shocked. That was just a corpse, not to mention the fact that this space suppressed all other powers. In other words, only the power of the corpse itself could be used to lift it up, yet it was already so terrifying. If it was still alive, how strong would its body be? Kill. The corpse bellowed, and killing intent filled the air. The half of the axe in its hand slashed out continuously, shattering the surrounding white skeletons and breaking apart the demonic aura. Woo-woo! The densely packed white skeletons began to go berserk as they pounced towards the skeletons. Some of the white skeletons even collided with the skeletons, causing a crisp sound to ring out. However, in the end, the white skeletons were smashed into pieces. The demonic chi continued to permeate the skeletons, attempting to drill into the skeletons of the Tianwu Academy students. After struggling for so many years, do you still have the strength to struggle? Amidst the densely packed white skeletons, demonic aura surged as the white skeletons gathered together. Eventually, they formed a gigantic skeleton that was over 100 zhang tall. Its skull was made up of numerous white skeletons, and 2 balls of black flames danced in its eye sockets. The aura it exuded was terrifying. Woo woo. As the gigantic white skeletons gathered together, the densely packed white skeletons roared and pounced towards the Tianwu Academy elder's body. If you don't die, I won't die either. Kill. The corpse's voice reverberated in the air as the half of the axe in its hand slashed in all directions, shattering a large number of white skeletons. However, there were simply too many white skeletons, and it was impossible to kill them all. The white skeletons that weren't reduced to dust gathered together under the influence of the demonic aura and continued to attack. For some reason, all of the white skeletons were fixated on the withered corpse, ignoring Du Xiaofu and the others. Du Xiaofu had been waiting in front of him all this while, and he was deep in thought. What's going on? Tang Wu, Gu Xinyan, Wu Kei, Qi Jiejun, and the others were perplexed. The white skeletons that had gathered together in the demonic aura seemed to have come back to life all of a sudden and started a huge battle. This was too intentional. This is the battlefield from back then. An ancient elder of Tianwu Academy persevered until the very end. He has been fending off the evil spirits from the ancient times until now. Du Xiaofu suddenly said such words, and the aura he exuded abruptly turned sharp. From the previous illusion, this was the battlefield where the elders of Tianwu Academy fended off the evil spirits and demonic beasts. The white skeletons here were all left behind by the living beings from back then. The heavenly devil battlefield was sealed, and this place was isolated from the outside world. However, there was an expert who persevered until the very end, fending off the evil spirits. Since the ancient times until now, he had persisted. Even though he had died and his vitality had faded away, he still left behind a trace of his will, blocking this place and preventing the evil spirits from passing through. Du Xiaofu clenched his fists tightly, and golden light surged out from his eyes. It was these evil spirits and demonic beasts that had swept through that era, plunging countless lives into misery and suffering. Corpses littered the land, and millions of lives were plundered. Not even the old, the weak, the women, and the children were spared. Then what should we do? Tang Wu asked after hearing Du Xiaofu's words. This is an elder of our Tianwu Academy. Help him kill these bizarre demonic beasts. Wu Kei spoke, and killing intent surged on her alluring face. Kill. Du Xiaofu pounced forward, and with a tap of his feet, he punched out with his arm. Golden light rippled on his fist, but that wasn't mystic qi. It was impossible to use mystic qi in this place. The golden light was a manifestation of the strength of his physical body. The surging tyrannical strength directly shattered the void. Chapter 2094. Some of the skeletons were shattered by Du Xiaofu and turned into ashes. Feng Han, Jiangqin, Qi Jiejun, and the others also made their moves to deal with the skeletons. Kill. Tang Wu, Wu Kei, Gu Xinyan, and the others couldn't hold themselves back and went all out. Suong, Zhu Tianwu, and the others dealt with the skeletons. Bang! Among the skeletons, there was a beast skeleton that was a few 100 feet long. It was powerful enough to push Qi Jiejun back. In this strange place, one could only use their physical strength. Qi Jiejun's cultivation was suppressed. These skeletons were extremely tough and could erupt with terrifying power. These skeletons were all experts when they were alive. After they died, their bones changed under the influence of demonic qi and were equally terrifying. Walala! Feng Han reverted to his original form and had flames that could burn the skeletons. Wherever he flapped his wings, the skeletons would be destroyed. Woo! That skeleton that was a few 100 feet tall was covered in demonic qi. There were 2 balls of black flames dancing in its eye sockets. Its terrifying aura was fluctuating as it stared at Feng Han and punched out with a fist made of bones. Feng Han's eyes were like a sea of fire as he went all out and flapped his wings. Poochie! Feng Han was pushed back and vomited blood. He almost fell from the sky. So powerful. Feng Han's eyes were filled with shock. Although his cultivation was suppressed in this strange place, with his cultivation in the body of the Phoenix clan, as well as the fact that he had undergone nirvana in the nirvana divine pool, his physical body was practically invincible among those in the same realm as him, except for freaks like little Xingxing and Du Xiaofu. But this strange skeleton was actually able to injure the original form of the phoenix race in a single move. Sage Realm skeletons? Feng Han muttered in his heart. These skeletons must have been Sage Realm experts. These skeletons were all in the Sage Realm. You are from the phoenix race, but it's still not enough. These words came from the Tianwu Academy's ancestor's mouth as he slashed his axe at the huge skeleton. Chi! The claw of the enormous skeleton collided, and the sound of metal clashing rang out. The energy shattered the void, and in the end, a crack was left on the claw imprint. You won't be able to resist for long. Black flames danced in its eyes, and behind it, demonic energy surged. In an instant, an even larger bestial skeleton appeared. It looked like a tiger or a wolf. Its huge eyes were two balls of bright black flames. Just like the eyes of the white skeleton in front of him, the black flames were filled with the most dense devil chi. Chi La, with a swipe of its claws, the bestial skeleton tore through space. Accompanied by pitch-black cracks, it grabbed at the corpse of the Tianwu Academy's ancestor. Its might wasn't beneath that of the gigantic human-shaped skeleton. An outer devil has entered. The Tianwu Academy ancestor spoke in astonishment. If Moxine doesn't die, kill him. However, the elder of Tianwu Academy remained fearless. His eyes glowed as he swung his axe down. Woo-woo. That enormous human-shaped skeleton let out an intimidating sound, attacking from all sides. There was too much suppression in this strange place. It was purely a contest of physical strength. This was the most direct form of resistance. Pong pong. Under the joint attack of the two strongest skeletons, cracks appeared on the Tianwu Academy ancestor's corpse, and he was forced to retreat. Wong. Golden light permeated the air. It was as though the sun had risen in this bizarre place, and the cries of the rock echoed in the air. Du Xiaofu's figure appeared, and the golden rock wings on his back spread out. Holding the heavenly tower in his hand tightly, he slashed it toward the massive bestial skeleton. The massive bestial skeleton was extremely powerful. It was formed from the remnant bones of an ancient sage expert, and it was infused with demonic energy. Without a doubt, it was the physical body of a sage expert. However, Du Xiaofu had already defeated the physical body of a sage expert before, so he wasn't afraid of this bizarre bestial skeleton. Flapping his golden rock wings, he executed the heavenly tower with the heavenly tower. Du Xiaofu guessed that the bizarre transformation of the bestial skeleton had something to do with the two strongest skeletons. Furthermore, the awakening of the Tianwu Academy ancestor was besieged by the bestial skeleton. Thus, the bestial skeleton targeted the two strongest skeletons. Slay. The Tianwu Academy ancestor's corpse roared. Even though it was just a skeleton, it seemed as though it had come back to life. It pounced toward the massive bestial skeleton and clashed with it relentlessly. It seemed as though it had truly come back to life, but at the same time, it also seemed as though it was just attacking instinctively. Pong 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 pong. Feng Han, Jiangchen, Qi Jiajun, and the others charged into the bestial skeleton, stirring up the valley. Their auras soared into the sky, and large amounts of white bones were shattered. However, this kind of physical body consumed a huge amount of energy. Some of the bestial skeletons were extremely powerful, and they managed to injure Gu Xinyan, Tang Wu, and the others. The bestial skeleton that Du Xiaofu was fighting with was extremely powerful. Demonic energy surged from it, and it seemed as though it could shatter everything. However, Du Xiaofu had already killed a sage expert before. Even though the bestial skeleton was powerful, it couldn't withstand Du Xiaofu's barrage of attacks. The bestial skeleton was shattered by the heavenly tower, and the massive bestial skeleton was shattered by Du Xiaofu's fist. Woo-woo, however. What surprised Du Xiaofu was that as the bestial skeleton shattered, a cluster of black flames shot out like lightning. It was accompanied by a torrential demonic energy, and it instantly swept towards Du Xiaofu's forehead. This sudden change was too fast, and Du Xiaofu could only rely on his physical strength because his other skills were suppressed. Du Xiaofu had no time to dodge, and the black flame instantly rushed into his forehead like lightning, drilling into his Naiwan palace. The black flames were too terrifying. Demonic energy filled the sky, and it was almost as powerful as a sage expert's primordial spirit. Du Xiaofu's expression changed. In an instant, the 5 spiritual thunders in his primordial spirit were activated at the same time. Thunder exploded, and the mysterious patterns of the lightning talisman were dazzling, sweeping the black flames into it. This strange place suppressed his cultivation, and Du Xiaofu couldn't use the power of his pulse spirit. It was limited in this strange place, but he could still use it in his Niwen palace. The black flames were very powerful, and the strange demonic energy could corrode everything, especially the primordial spirit. However, Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit was different. It had merged with the 5 spiritual thunders and the pulse spirit. What's more, the 5 spiritual thunders in Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit seemed to be able to suppress the demonic energy. The power of Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit was definitely not below his physical body. Although the demonic energy wasn't much weaker than a sage expert's primordial spirit, it wasn't. It didn't take long for the 5 spiritual thunders in Du Xiaofu's Niwen palace to smash it. Woo-woo! The black flames were extinguished, and the billowing demonic energy was released. However, it was obliterated by the lightning talisman, and it emitted a shrill cry, which made people tremble with fear. In the end, it couldn't escape the fate of being smashed. The last huge energy was swallowed by the silver silk soul devouring thunder in Du Xiaofu's primordial spirit. Chapter 2095. This black flame was a powerful primordial spirit energy that was tainted by demonic aura. The demonic aura was extremely terrifying. Even under the effects of Du Xiaofu's 5 types of spirit lightning, it was only suppressed and didn't dissipate quickly. How bizarre! Du Xiaofu was astonished. He didn't dare to be careless. If the demonic aura were to remain in his primordial spirit, the consequences would be unimaginable. Du Xiaofu also executed his spirit-searching art, hoping to find some useful clues from the demonic aura primordial spirit. However, he realized that the spirit-searching art was greatly affected by the demonic aura primordial spirit. The demonic aura primordial spirit was also badly damaged, so he couldn't find any useful clues. All he knew was that the demonic aura primordial spirit came from the calamity in the ancient times. Die! With a deep bellow, an axe gleam tore through space. It was as though a resplendent bolt of lightning had streaked across the sky, revealing a pitch-black vacuum. Pong! The human-shaped skeleton was finally smashed apart by the axe of the Tianwu Academy ancestor, causing its bones to shatter inch by inch. Shio! Suddenly, a wisp of black flames shot out from the shattered white skeleton and darted into the glabella of the Tianwu Academy elder with lightning speed. In that instant, black flames flickered in the eyes of the Tianwu Academy ancestor as overwhelming demonic aura gushed out from his body. You won't be able to kill me. A terrifying voice sounded from the Tianwu Academy ancestor's corpse as demonic aura surged into the sky. Demonic brat, it's time to end this. The voice of the Tianwu Academy ancestor sounded as though he was prepared for this. As soon as he said those words, dazzling talisman inscriptions started to spread from the top of the Tianwu Academy ancestor's head to toe, forming a net of light. The light flickered as though a star was burning, and a destructive aura emanated from it. What are you trying to do? No, no. That intimidating voice began to sound incomparably angry, mixed with fear. That voice made the hair of those who heard it stand on end. Woo-woo. At the same time, the surrounding white skeletons screeched. Bizarre demonic aura gushed out from the white skeletons and gushed into the Tianwu Academy ancestor's corpse. Ka, Feng Han, Jiangchen, Wu Kei, Tang Wu, Gu Xinyan, and the other white skeletons that were madly attacking were disintegrating. White bones covered the ground, forming a sea of bones. Woo-woo! Demonic chi gathered and rushed towards the mummy like a tornado. The demonic chi rushed madly, as if it wanted to destroy the mysterious runes on the talisman. However, the talisman markings on the dried corpse had already spread out like a prairie fire, flickering more and more. From the inside of the dried corpse, a strange flame was burning from the inside out. Crackling noises could be heard as the flames soared into the sky, illuminating the entire sky. Bastard, this won't do you any good. Your corpse will turn into ashes, and your primordial spirit will scatter as well. You won't even be able to enter the cycle of reincarnation. From now on, you'll be reduced to ashes. A terrifying voice rang out from the demonic chi, becoming more and more terrified. I'm just an obsession. Why should I go through the cycle of reincarnation? The voice from the flames was emotionless. Feng Han, Jiangxin, Qi Jiajun, and the others had resolved the crisis. They raised their heads and looked at the corpse that was covered in flames and demonic qi. That senior inscribed a great formation in his body and used his own body as the price to ignite his own Tao fire to perish together with the demonic creature. Feng Han frowned. His expression was solemn and his eyes were filled with reverence. Gu Xinyan, Tang Wu, Wu Kei, and the other Tianwu Academy disciples were filled with grief. That was the ancestor of Tianwu Academy. Senior. Du Xiaofu suppressed the demonic qi in his primordial spirit. He looked at the dried corpse that was being burned by the Tao fire. His eyes were filled with reverence and desolation. He had resisted the demonic creature from the ancient times until now. In the end, he paid the price to perish together with the demonic creature. I didn't expect that after so many years, I would still be able to see a student of Tianwu Academy and fulfill my last wish. A voice came from the surging flames. Along with the voice, an illusory figure appeared from the flames. It was a middle-aged man with a rugged figure. His eyes shone brightly, and he exuded a valiant aura. An extremely powerful aura emanated from him, and an illusory Tianwu Academy emblem flickered on his shoulder. The illusory figure seemed real. His gaze swept across the emblems on the shoulders of Gu Xinyan, Tang Wu, and Wu Kei before landing on Du Xiaofu. A gratified smile appeared on his face as he said, "Times have changed. The calamity can no longer be stopped. However, to be able to see such a junior, I feel gratified that the Academy has a successor." Senior. Gu Xinyan, Wu Kei, and Tang Wu's eyes trembled as they sobbed. Senior. Are there any other seniors of Tianwu Academy who are trapped here? Du Xiaofu asked. That middle-aged man should be the last illusory figure of the Tianwu Academy's ancestor. He hoped that he could obtain some useful clues. I've already reached the end and I can't say too much. Go over there and be careful. Everything you want to know is buried there. The middle-aged man pointed in a direction and waved his hand. The broken half of the axe immediately appeared before Du Xiaofu. He said, "This weapon has been with me for my entire life. I hope that all of you will be able to leave this place alive and hand this weapon over to a fated person in the Academy. It can be considered as me leaving behind a legacy." With that, the middle-aged man's figure became more and more illusory before disappearing into the surging flames. The demonic aura completely disappeared and the flames dissipated. Everything returned to normal. Wang, half of the axe glowed and emitted a mournful wail. Senior. Gu Xinyan, Tang Wu, and Wu Kei bowed respectfully with tears in their eyes. Senior. Rest in peace. Du Xiaofu held the axe with both hands and bowed. Senior. Rest in peace. Qi Jiajun, Feng Han, and the others bowed. Where do we go now? Jiangxin retracted his gaze and asked Du Xiaofu. He was the only one who hadn't been injured in the battle. Let's go there. Du Xiaofu looked in the direction the middle-aged man had pointed, hoping to find something. This place was already a sea of bones. Du Xiaofu didn't stay and led the group out. Along the way, there was no sound. The entire space was also very quiet. Only the occasional cracking sound of bones could be heard from the places where everyone stepped on the ground. Everyone was silent. No one spoke, and the atmosphere was very heavy. From the illusory scene, everyone saw a corner of the great calamity. Wherever it swept, not even a blade of grass grew. Everything was destroyed and turned into a purgatory. And now, the great calamity was coming again. The future would be very terrifying. If no one could resist it, the entire world would turn into a demonic domain once more. Wherever those demons passed, the 3 continents in Kyushu would be swept away. This was like a haze that enveloped everyone's hearts. It was heavy and even depressing. Chapter 2096. The great calamity seems to have been caused by the devil religion. Along the way, Tang Wu finally couldn't help but ask. He had many questions in his heart and didn't know much. It should have come from the devil religion, Qi Jejun replied, his gaze solemn. As a direct descendant of the Yin-Yang school, his status in the school wasn't ordinary and he knew many secrets. The more he knew, the more worried Qi Jejun was. Back then, there was still a group of ancient experts resisting the great calamity, including the dragon god and other supreme experts. But now, everything was inferior to the ancient times. Then why didn't we join forces to kill the people of the devil religion? The great clans, the Phoenix race, and the others could have eradicated the devil religion. This way, the great calamity would have been eliminated. Tang Wu said after thinking. The devil religion had already shown up. If they had killed Moksha, the 9 devil religions, primordial spirits, and the others, the devil religion wouldn't have reappeared. Your thinking is too simple, Feng Han said. Feng Han spoke. With his status, although Tang Wu could be considered an outstanding figure among the younger generation, if it were any other time, he probably wouldn't respond to Tang Wu. However, the current situation was somewhat special. They had been together for a long time and had experienced many life and death battles. Therefore, Feng Han replied to Tang Wu, according to what I know from some ancient records in the clan, the great calamity is far more mysterious and vast than imagined. It engulfs so much that it's hard to imagine. The great clans are very clear in their hearts that no one can truly stop the great calamity. Whoever acts will have to pay a terrible price. Many people only want to preserve their strength and maybe have a chance to protect themselves. The lives of the world have nothing to do with them. This world is much bigger than we imagined, but the great calamity in the ancient times buried a lot of history. When the tomb of eternity opens, everyone wants to dig up everything, Qi Jejun said. Du Xiaofu listened to Feng Han and Qi Jejun's words. There seemed to be a lot hidden in these two people's words. Where the great calamity passed, it engulfed the world. How can the 9 great clans, the Phoenix race, the dragons, and the others protect themselves? Du Xiaofu was doubtful. After the great calamity, everything had turned into a demonic domain. Although the 9 great clans and the dragons were strong, they were still not strong enough to protect themselves. The 9 great clans, the dragons, and the phoenixes are all different from what the common people see on the surface. This world is also much more vast than what the common people see. I don't know much about it. Maybe one day, when we reach that step, everything will be revealed. Feng Han solemnly said to Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu sank into deep thought. There were many things he was puzzled about. Rumor has it that there may still be some ancient experts in the heavenly devil battlefield, such as the 9 great families, the Phoenix clan, the dragons, and other ancient experts. Gu Xinyan asked. Her beautiful eyes fluctuated with brilliance. She had heard a few rumors before, but she didn't know if they were true or false. Now that Qi Jejun and Feng Han were here, she wanted to clear up her doubts. It is indeed possible that there are ancient experts who haven't died. However, everything is still unknown. We will only know the answer when we enter the eternal tomb. Qi Jejun hesitated for a moment before nodding to Gu Xinyan. Once one reached the Saint Realm, they could live for a long time. In particular, the ancient experts of the past were extremely powerful. If the demon emperors of the past could be revived, then there was definitely a chance that the ancient experts still existed in the world and remained in the eternal tomb. The ancient experts of the past all entered the heavenly devil battlefield. Even if there is a chance that they are still alive, I'm afraid there won't be many of them. They are as rare as phoenix feathers and qilin horns. Feng Han sighed. Be careful. Suddenly, Jiangchen stopped in his tracks and looked ahead. When everyone heard this, they all stopped and looked in the direction Jiangchen was looking. In the distance, there was a vast expanse of land. All around it were broken walls and mottled walls. There was blood sprinkled on the ground, but there were no bones. There were many huge things that looked like half of a giant object standing tall, as if they had been buried deep underground. Upon closer inspection, they looked like the hulls of many huge ships. From afar, there were traces of destruction. At the very front, there was a huge object standing tall, like a giant beast. What is that place? Feng Han's eyes narrowed as he looked ahead. It was clearly quiet, and there were no fluctuations of aura, but for some reason, he felt a sense of trepidation. Everyone, be careful. Du Xiaofu walked forward. This was the direction the ancestor of Tianwu Academy had pointed out. When he said that everything he wanted to know was buried, he might have been referring to this place. This blood is extraordinary. It's been so many years, but it's still glowing. It hasn't completely solidified yet. It must have been left behind by an expert. Along the way, Qi Jiajun lowered his head and examined the blood on the ground. It was left behind by an expert, but after so long, it didn't have much value. These are all warships. They used to be Tianwu Academy's warships. Gu Xinyan stood at the front, inspecting the large halves of the ships. They were all battleships and most of them were half buried in the ground, mottled and broken. However, she could vaguely make out the emblem of Tianwu Academy. It had appeared in the illusion not too long ago, and should be the battleships of Tianwu Academy. An intense battle took place here. Many ancient experts shed their blood. Feng Han spoke. The broken warships, the glowing blood, the mottled ground, and the inexplicable aura all proved that this place was extraordinary. It had a great origin, and an intense battle had taken place here. Many experts had participated in it, and blood had been shed. Something's not right there. Jiangchen looked ahead and tilted his head slightly, revealing the perfect curve of his face. Everyone looked in the direction Jiangchen was pointing at. There was a huge object at the innermost part of the warship. It was like a giant beast lying on the ground. Let's go take a look. Du Xiaofu was also looking in that direction, and he also felt a strange feeling. The group walked forward cautiously, not daring to be careless. This strange place was terrifying, and danger could appear at any time. But along the way, there were no mishaps. Du Xiaofu approached the behemoth. It was simply too huge. Standing 10,000 feet apart, Du Xiaofu looked minuscule. He could not see the end of it. Even a 10,000 feet tall beast would look small in front of this behemoth. That's an ancient warship, Feng Han exclaimed. Looking at it from a corner, he could see that it was an ancient warship. Du Xiaofu looked up and sized up the ancient warship. It was too big, and its entire body was deep. Just its height alone was 1,000 zhang. There were many cracks on its walls, as if they had been left behind by some sharp object. However, the cracks weren't deep, and the ancient warship managed to withstand them. Let's go up and take a look, Jiangchen said. With a tap of his foot, he leapt into the air and shot toward the warship. Although his cultivation base was suppressed in this place, Jiangchen was strong enough to leap into the air. His feet spun in midair, and he used the momentum to leap onto the warship. Chapter 2097. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Suddenly, the void rumbled, and a screen of light that was large enough to cover the entire warship surged out from the surroundings. Whoosh! Mysterious talisman inscriptions flickered in the air, and an enormous pillar of runic light shot toward Jiangchen like a bolt of lightning. It was incredibly fast, and Jiangchen was suppressed in midair. He couldn't dodge. Jiangchen's expression flickered. He raised his arm and struck out with his palm. Black chi swirled around him, and the two collided. A deep sonic boom rang out, echoing through the silent void. Bang! Energy surged, shattering the air. Jiangchen was flung backward, then landed on the ground. Thump! Thump! Jiangchen stumbled back 3 steps, then steadied himself. His expression was one of shock. Du Xiaofu retreated at the same time as everyone else, his expression grave. If even Jiangchen had been forced back, the consequences would have been unthinkable. The mysterious net of light disappeared as Jiangchen retreated. Everything returned to silence, as if nothing had happened at all. Don't act rashly. Du Xiaofu's eyes widened in surprise. This place was strange. Even Jiangchen had been forced back. Someone powerful must have set up an energy barrier around this place. Jiangchen exclaimed, his expression grave. He could see that the barrier wasn't covered with an ancient talisman formation, but rather an energy barrier. The strange energy he'd felt just now had made him shudder with fear. This barrier had existed for countless years, so it must have consumed a great deal of energy. Otherwise, he would have been in dire straits. Whoosh, whoosh. Du Xiaofu picked up a few pebbles from the ground and tossed them in a few directions. Before they even got close to the giant warship, the barrier of light appeared again. Multiple pillars of light shot out, instantly destroying the pebbles. Then, everything returned to normal. This isn't simple. Du Xiaofu frowned. This energy barrier was very strong. But in this strange place, even his bloodline soul couldn't be used. He couldn't test out the Redbone Horse Monkey's innate gift. Besides, this was an energy barrier, not a talisman formation. Perhaps the Redbone Horse Monkey's innate gift wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Let me try. Gu Xinyan walked out. Wrapped in her red dress, her figure was graceful. Her temperament and appearance were beautiful. After all these years of training and cultivation, she looked even more attractive. This place is not normal. Du Xiaofu did not dare to let Gu Xinyan try. I discovered something special. This ancient warship should be related to our Tianwu Academy. I will be careful, Gu Xinyan said. Du Xiaofu hesitated for a moment before nodding. Gu Xinyan smiled. Her beauty was moving. She tapped the ground with the tip of her foot and leaped into the air. Her beautiful figure leaped into the air, her red dress swaying. That beautiful figure rushed towards the enormous ancient warship. A screen of light appeared, shining brightly. But at this moment, the emblem of Tianwu Academy on Gu Xinyan's shoulder seemed to be attracted by something. The glow on it grew brighter, and the undulations of the runes seemed to be resonating with the mysterious inscriptions on the light screen. An unbelievable scene appeared. Gu Xinyan entered the screen of light. Her beautiful figure tapped on the wall of the ancient battleship in midair. She jumped onto the battleship like a ladder. She really went in. Tang Wu, Qi Jiajun, and the others were astonished. Gu Xinyan actually managed to board the ancient battleship without any obstructions. This ancient battleship was left behind by Tianwu Academy. Tianwu Academy's disciples carry the emblem and are able to enter the energy barrier, Du Xiaofu said. He seemed to have noticed something. What's wrong with Junior Xinyan? At this moment, Wu Kei raised her head and looked at the deck of the huge ancient warship with a strange look in her eyes. Everyone followed her gaze and looked over. Gu Xinyan, who had just stepped onto the deck, was motionless like a statue. Did something happen to Xinyan? Tang Wu's expression turned grave. His black robes fluttered as he leaped into the air. As a student of Tianwu Academy, Gu Xinyan had successfully boarded the battleship. She shouldn't be in any danger. Let's go. Just as Tang Wu stood up, Du Xiaofu waved his sleeves and the golden rock wings spread out from his back. He carried Feng Han, Qi Jiajun, Jiangxin, and the others on his wings and soared into the sky. His speed was even faster than Tang Wu's. When the screen of light appeared, the emblem of Tianwu Academy glowed and they landed on the deck. She wore a large red robe that fluttered in the wind, and half of her body was covered by a white jade that looked like congealed white jade. The witch bird soared into the sky, and her black hair was draped over her shoulders like a waterfall. Above her boots, a pair of slender, moist, and well-proportioned legs were exposed all the way down to her ankles. The tight leather armor wrapped around her perfectly round and perky buttocks, and they drew an arc in the air, which was especially alluring. The remaining Tianwu Academy disciples followed closely behind him. Du Xiaofu landed on the deck and retracted his golden rock wings. Jiangxin, Feng Han, Qi Jiajun, and the others landed on the deck as well. Du Xiaofu was worried about Gu Xinyan. He followed the gaze of the dazed Gu Xinyan and looked ahead. His eyes trembled violently. Oh my heavens! Qi Jiajun, Tang Wu, Wu Kei, and the others landed on the deck and were shocked by the sight before them. The deck, which was as vast as a plaza, was filled with skeletons and dried corpses. The deck was stained with blood. Some of the blood had already dried up while others were still glowing. Skeletons were scattered all over the deck. Some of the dried corpses were leaning against the deck, while others were sitting cross-legged. Most of the corpses were broken. These skeletons had been lying quietly on the deck for a long time. The deck was so vast that the densely packed skeletons and dried corpses could be piled up into mountains. There were too many skeletons. How many ancestors had died here? These are the ancestors of our Tianwu Academy, Tang Wu said with a deep voice. Along with their arrival, Many of the dried corpses had the emblem of Tianwu Academy glowing on their tattered gray robes. Just how many lives have been lost? Just how many experts have died? Qi Jiajun spoke with a grave expression. Everyone's hearts were heavy and shocked. Their eyes were wide open as they stared at the vast ship in awe. Skeletons and dried corpses were piled up all over the deck. Too many people had died and were buried here over the years. What happened back then? Why did so many ancestors die here? Gu Xinyan recovered from her shock and asked with a choked voice. These were the ancestors of Tianwu Academy. Since they were buried here, something huge must have happened here back then. Du Xiaofu didn't say a word. His heart was heavy as he inspected the skeletons. They were all experts when they were alive, and none of them were weak. Judging from the bloodstains on the deck, the fact that they were still glowing after such a long time meant that they were all experts and Jizuan realm experts when they were alive. There are Qingkuan bags. There are artifacts. Tang Wu and a few other Tianwu Academy disciples made another discovery. There were many Qingkuan bags and scattered artifacts among the skeletons. Du Xiaofu walked forward and moved the skeletons and dried corpses away. These were the corpses of the ancestors of Tianwu Academy. He didn't dare to step on them as that would be disrespectful. At the center of the massive warship, there was a massive cabin. Du Xiaofu walked at the front while Jiangchen, Feng Han, Qi Jiajun, and the others followed behind him silently. These were the corpses of the ancestors of Tianwu Academy. Along the way, there were Qingkuan bags and artifacts on the deck, but no one touched them. They knew of the relationship between Tianwu Academy and Du Xiaofu. After all, the Demon King was a graduate of Tianwu Academy. It was a little dark inside the cabin, but the interior was spacious. There are so many corpses here. When the group stepped in, Qi Jiajun exclaimed in astonishment. There were many corpses sitting cross-legged in the cabin. Their clothes were glowing with blood, and their hair was messy. They are also the ancestors of Tianwu Academy. All that was left of the corpses were skin and bones. Their tattered clothes covered their bodies, but the glowing emblem of Tianwu Academy could be seen on their clothes. Wang Wang. All of a sudden, a brilliant light shone in the cabin, and the sound of wind and thunder resounded. The dazzling light illuminated the entire cabin. The sound of wind and thunder resounded like thunder, shaking one's soul. Along with an ancient and terrifying pressure, even Du Xiaofu, Jiangchen, and the others felt their hearts trembling. Saint artifacts. There are so many saint artifacts. A few elders and disciples from the Yinyang school exclaimed. Amidst the dazzling light, there were many saint artifacts and artifacts that were releasing terrifying might. This is troublesome. Qi Jiajun clicked his tongue. Saint artifacts and artifacts seemed to cover the entire sky, and the overwhelming pressure came from the saint artifacts. There were no less than 60 of them. What kind of concept was this? The 9 great clans, Phoenix Clan, and the other clans only had 3 or 4 saint artifacts. Saint artifacts had spirits, and if they weren't in this bizarre place of suppression, Qi Jiajun wouldn't be afraid of dealing with a saint artifact. However, they were in this bizarre place of suppression. Even though the saint artifacts were suppressed, it was impossible for them to suppress the saint artifacts with their physical strength. Wang Wang. Wind and thunder resounded, and the saint artifacts and artifacts exuded an aura that resembled the roars of demonic beasts. There was no goodwill in them, and a destructive aura emanated from them. With so many saint artifacts and artifacts going berserk and awakening, Jiangchen and Feng Han were on high alert. This was definitely going to be troublesome. Tianwu Academy's juniors pay respect to the seniors. Du Xiaofu looked at the berserk saint artifacts and bowed to the dried corpses of Tianwu Academy's seniors. Greetings to the seniors. Wu Kei, Tang Wu, Gu Xinyan, and the others walked in as well. When they saw Du Xiaofu bowing, they followed behind him silently. As though sensing something, the saint artifacts floated in the air and emitted a resplendent light. They didn't attack Du Xiaofu and the others, and their voices became deeper. Saint artifacts have spirits. We are disciples of Tianwu Academy, and we bear no ill will. Du Xiaofu looked at the saint artifacts and spoke. Saint artifacts had spirits, and if they weren't destroyed, they would definitely understand. Wang Wang. As Du Xiaofu spoke, the saint artifacts began to tremble. Light flickered, and the sound of wind and thunder changed. It became deeper and deeper, as though they were trying to say something. It was as though they were performing a tragic war song, causing one to mourn for no reason. Chapter 2098. Walala. The spacious cabin suddenly lit up and the runes and the surroundings changed. In a short period of time, a vast screen of light appeared in the air. Within the screen of light, a vast land appeared. There was a huge city, lush mountains, and the energy of heaven and earth rippled. There were spiritual birds and auspicious beasts, creating an auspicious scene. Woo-woo. Suddenly, demonic aura swept over and demonic spirits appeared. They swept across the land and charged at the huge city, breaking through the city walls and destroying them. Such a scene was happening right before their eyes. The scene was too realistic, causing everyone to feel nervous. It was as though they were in the midst of it. The terrifying evil spirits were densely packed, and the beast-shaped evil spirits roared savagely. Du Xiaofu's expression changed when he saw such a scene. This was an illusion, but it wasn't an illusion. This was reality. An expert had experienced it and left it here. After a long time, they were finally able to see it today. This is another part of the calamity back then. It really happened. Qi Jiajun's heart trembled. The calamity back then had swept across too many places. Kill. Such battle cries rang out. In the image, there were warships flying across the sky, and demonic beast mounts blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Many experts appeared and rushed towards the evil spirits in a mighty manner. They are the ancestors of our Tianwu Academy. Wu Kei, Tang Wu, and the others were agitated. The experts that came were the ancestors of Tianwu Academy. The emblem of Tianwu Academy glowed on the warships. During the calamity back then, the ancestors of Tianwu Academy were the ones who fought on the front lines without hesitation. Kill. Shouts of killing shook one's soul. The warships were able to attack the evil spirits. The might of the experts was overwhelming, and they destroyed the evil spirits. Everyone felt as though they were in the midst of the battle. Their blood boiled, and they wanted nothing more than to throw themselves into the battle. Woo-woo. In the sky, a demonic hand covered the sky, shattering the warships and crushing the experts. Blood splattered all over the land. Kill. The experts of Tianwu Academy didn't retreat. Instead, they joined forces to form a formation to defend against the demonic hand. The demonic hand was too powerful and could crush everything. Many experts died tragically, and the huge city crumbled. It was impossible to stop the calamity. The experts of Tianwu Academy fought until the last old man. He self-detonated, blasting the demonic hand into pieces. This scene caused Feng Han, Qi Jiajun, and the rest of the experts of Tianwu Academy. Du Xiaofu Yunin desolations the scene, and evil spirits were. All of these scenes were terrifying. No one could stop such a great calamity. Many experts rushed out in this world. However, devil hands and claws rushed out from the void, enveloping the sky and crushing all the experts, S's of SSS. Is this the great calamity? Even the old, the weak, the women, and the children are not spared. Those demonic creatures are despicable. Tang Wu gritted his teeth, his eyes red. Wherever the evil spirits and demonic creatures passed, they were unstoppable. Even the old and the children died tragically. The world was immersed in darkness, covered by demonic aura. An expert fought until the very end, bleeding his last drop of blood before self-detonating. Bastard! Someone roared with hatred and grief. This is just a small part of the great calamity. If it really happens again, the 3 continents Kyushu will cease to exist. Everything will turn into hell. Feng Han said. Du Xiaofu's expression was grim. Even so many ancient experts couldn't stop it. If the great calamity were to happen again, who would be able to stop it? Back then, the ruler of the 3,000 great worlds had mentioned the great calamity. Only now did Du Xiaofu truly understand what a great calamity was. Those ancient experts had monstrous strength, but they were still crushed without any resistance. It was too terrifying. If the great calamity were to happen again, Who would be able to stop it? The ruler of the 3,000 great worlds and the dragon god were no longer around. What about the legendary East deity, West demon, and the others? Could they protect the 3 continents Kyushu? Voila! The scene dimmed and a figure appeared, interrupting Du Xiaofu's thoughts. That figure was illusory. It was an old man with shoulder-length white hair that was unrestrained. The old man looked at Du Xiaofu, Gu Xinyan, Tang Wu, Wu Kei, and the others and said, "The inheritance of Tianwu Academy is in this worship. I'll leave it to you guys. Bring it out and let Tianwu Academy continue its legacy." Ancestor, Du Xiaofu, Gu Xinyan, and the others bowed. This old man had the emblem of Tianwu Academy on his shoulder. He was another ancestor of Tianwu Academy. I can feel that those demons are coming again. I'm powerless to bring the inheritance of Tianwu Academy away. Quickly think of a way to escape. The old man spoke with a grave expression. He seemed to want to do something, but his figure was slowly disappearing. Is there really no way to stop it? I hate it. If not for someone secretly colluding with the enemy, my Tianwu Academy wouldn't have suffered such heavy losses. I hate it. The old man's eyes were filled with unwillingness and hatred. Then, his figure completely disappeared. There seems to be a secret. Du Xiaofu frowned. From the words of the old man, he could tell that there was a secret behind the heavy losses suffered by Tianwu Academy in the ancient era. Back then, someone secretly colluded with the enemy. Wong Wong. The sound of wind and thunder resounded. Light filled the cabin, interrupting Du Xiaofu's train of thought. Clanging sounds of wind and thunder resounded from the densely packed saint artifacts in the cabin. Light burst forth, and energy surged violently. They turned into streaks of lightning and shot out of the cabin. Inside the cabin, the many magical artifacts and treasures followed closely behind the sacred artifacts. What's going on? Everyone was bewildered and confused. Boom! All of a sudden, the cabin trembled violently. Then, it swayed as though it had suffered an intense impact. Something's wrong. Du Xiaofu, Jiangxin, and Feng Han's expressions changed. They immediately rushed out of the cabin. Walala! Outside the cabin, Du Xiaofu looked over. Unknowingly, the gigantic warship was already glowing. Runes flickered, and rumbling sounds could be heard. The gigantic warship was trembling. At this moment, the dazzling energy barrier outside the warship had been activated. Light filled the sky, an ancient aura filled the air. The gigantic warship stood tall, enveloped in a vast energy barrier. Ripples emanated from it, as though it were resonating with the barrier. A war. Bang, 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 bang. Outside the warship's barrier, demonic energy suddenly surged out from the void in front of it. Demonic clouds surged, blotting out the sky and obscuring the sun. Instantly, the world darkened. Several demonic beasts and figures were constantly bombarding the energy barrier. Rumble. Energy shot out from the barrier like lightning, killing several demonic beasts and figures. However, 2 demonic beasts and 2 figures were only pushed back. They were very strong and hadn't been killed. Instead, they strangely recovered and continued to attack the barrier. Wong Wong. On the deck of the warship, the saint artifacts glowed and erupted with runes. They seemed to roar, and their fighting spirits soared into the heavens. They wanted to charge out of the energy barrier and fight the demonic beasts. However, the saint artifacts didn't charge out of the energy barrier. Instead, they surrounded the front of the warship, forming a defensive formation that seemed to protect everything on the ship. People from the devil religion, Feng Han, Qi Jiejun, Wu Kei, Gu Xinyan, and the others were shocked. People from the devil religion had actually appeared here and were attacking the energy barrier. It seemed like they wanted to break the barrier. Du Xiaofu's gaze swept across the front of the warship. Then, his gaze landed on the ground in front of him. There were 3 figures there. In the middle was a woman in her 30s. She had an exquisite figure and a curvaceous chest. She didn't have many clothes on her body. She only covered the important parts of her body, revealing her fair thighs and deep cleavage. Her skin was as white as snow, and she had a mature charm. However, on her charming face, half of her face was covered with a skull pattern. It was very strange and gave off a sinister feeling. On the left and right of this woman, there was a middle-aged man in armor. His black hair reached his shoulders, and he had a muscular body. Mysterious runes flashed on his black armor. The elder was extremely eye-catching. He didn't have a single strand of hair, but his bald head was covered in a dark color. His wide robe covered his withered body, swaying back and forth. It's them. Du Xiaofu's eyes darkened. He had seen these three figures at the entrance of the eternal tomb. They were from the devil religion. This was especially so for the middle-aged man in black armor. That familiar aura was the 9th demon emperor of the devil religion. The warship towered like a giant mountain. It stood there in silence for countless years. It's Tianwu Academy. Given their defenses, they must have left behind their legacy. I thought that they were already struggling at death's door, but to think that they were still plotting against us. We can't let them go. The 9th demon emperor stared at the warship in front of him. Demonic aura rippled around him, and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. Back then, when they descended and swept through everything, the greatest obstacle they encountered was Tianwu Academy. Many of their experts were killed by Tianwu Academy. Now that they encountered the legacy of Tianwu Academy, there was no reason for them to let it go. The legacy of Tianwu Academy can't be left behind. The 8th demon emperor spoke. His dark brown eyes were like a bottomless abyss, and demonic aura surged within them. Back then, Tianwu Academy had caused them to pay a huge price. Even he was injured by a single person from Tianwu Academy. Therefore, he couldn't allow Tianwu Academy to continue existing. Indeed, it's wishful thinking for them to leave behind their legacy. The 7th demon emperor looked at the dozens of shining saint weapons on the huge warship. His voice was gloomy, and his rosy and moving face formed a sharp contrast with the 8th demon emperor's dark bald head. Suddenly, the woman looked at the warship, and her eyes rippled. She said, "Someone beat us to it. Kiki, the heavens are truly on my side. I didn't even have to put in any effort." The 9th demon emperor looked at the warship and saw a purple-robed young man on it. He was too familiar with this young man, and killing intent surged in his heart. Is it that lad? We can't let those with lightning martial veins remain. It's time to retrieve those spiritual lightning bolts and the final divine lightning cauldron. The 7th demon emperor stared at the purple-robed young man from afar with a deep gaze. Chapter 2099. Leftover tricks, an arrow at the end of its flight. Attack. After he said that, the 8th demon emperor also rushed forward. Demonic aura lingered around his body, and strange runes glowed on his dark, bald head. He swung his hand, and with surging waves of energy, the space in front of his fist caved in as he punched toward the energy barrier. A resplendent beam of energy shot out from the energy barrier at the same time. The two forces collided, and a loud boom rang out. Rumble. The earth trembled, and so did the huge ancient warship. A large patch of space shattered, and demonic chi and runes surged. Dang dang. The 8th demon emperor staggered back, and his brown eyes changed color. That energy barrier was much stronger than he had imagined. This place is strange, and there are many restrictions. Those fellows from Tianwu Academy are not simple. However, this method won't last for long. Let's attack together. The 7th demon emperor said coldly. His clothes fluttered slightly, and it seemed as though he would be exposed at any moment. Pong pong pong. The 3 demon emperors attacked at the same time, causing the energy barrier to shake violently. The runes shattered, and the huge ancient warship trembled continuously. There are still 3 experts, and they are very strong. This energy barrier might shatter at any moment, Qi Jiajun said, and his eyes flickered with starlight. This energy barrier had existed for a long time, and it could not withstand the attacks of the 3 experts from the devil religion. It might shatter at any moment. It's the 9th demon emperor, and the other 2 should not be weaker than him. They should also be 2 demon emperors from the devil religion. Du Xiaofu's eyes flashed coldly. Looking at the 9th demon emperor and the other 2 who were attacking the energy barrier, it seemed like their bodies and primordial spirits had fused into one, and they had recovered to their strongest state. 3 demon emperors. Hearing that, Qi Jejun, Feng Han, Tang Wu, and Gu Xinyan's faces changed. It was especially so for Qi Jejun and Feng Han. As disciples of the 9 great families, they knew what demon emperors represented. Any demon emperor was extremely terrifying, and they were all Saint Realm experts. This is going to be troublesome. Qi Jejun's face turned solemn. The experts from the Yin-Yang school were not here. With the energy barrier broken, the 3 demon emperors were not something they could deal with. Bang, bang, bang. Thunder-like explosions resounded unceasingly. 3 great devil emperors, 2 other devil demon beasts, and 2 experts of devil religion attacked simultaneously. The energy barrier had already begun to crack. It was unable to withstand the unceasing bombardment. Buzz. Above the ship's hold, the holy weapons clanged like gods and devils howled. The energy shield is about to break. The white-brow hermit stood at the very back. Under such a terrifying aura, he was trembling as he stood there. His spirit was trembling from the pressure. Wait for me on the ship. Suddenly, Du Xiaofu spoke. He raised his head slightly, and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. You want to make a move? Jiangchen asked, looking at Du Xiaofu. He'd been standing there quietly this entire time, and his expression hadn't changed much. Beneath his dark purple robes, his posture was elegant and graceful. 3 demon emperors. Du Xiaofu looked at the 9 demon emperor and the other 2 demon emperors who were planning to continue bombarding the energy barrier. His purple robes fluttered, and the cold light in his eyes turned into undisguised killing intent. The corners of his mouth curled into a sneer as he said in a deep voice, "Unfortunately, it's not their turn to call the shots here. Leave it to me." Jiangchen glanced at Du Xiaofu. His voice was calm as he tilted his head slightly. All right. Du Xiaofu smiled at Jiangchen, nodded, then rose from the ground. With a sweep of his sleeve, he followed Jiangchen down from the ship. What are those 2 guys trying to do? When he saw this, Qi Jejun's expression changed drastically. Those were 3 demon emperors of the devil religion. Did those 2 really want to fight them head-on? This place is being suppressed. The same goes for Sage Realm cultivators. Feng Han's eyes were filled with anticipation. This place was very strange. Everyone was being suppressed, including Sage Realm cultivators. On their way here, Du Xiaofu had even killed Sage Realm skeletons. Rumble. Energy trembled, and the demon chi enveloping the energy barrier cracked. Under the continuous barrage of attacks, it could no longer endure. Die. The energy barrier rippled, and at the same time, a purple-robed figure shot out like a bolt of lightning. The roar of a dragon and the trumpeting of an elephant reverberated through the ancient void. Roar. An incomparably domineering aura suddenly rushed toward a ferocious demon beast that had just been pushed back. Roar. The demon beast's eyes were crimson red. As it retreated, it roared and swung its claws. Its enormous body was like a small mountain, and a terrifying aura erupted from it. Bang, bang. In the blink of an eye, the demon beast's speed was too fast. A terrifying, domineering power swept out from its claws. Amid the roar of a dragon and the trumpeting of an elephant, the demon beast's body shattered inch by inch, transforming into a bloody mist. A purple-robed figure swooped down. Du Xiaofu's figure landed on the ground. He raised his fist, which was still suffused with golden light. Just now, he had destroyed a demon beast with a single punch. At the same time, a figure appeared in the air like a ghost. A claw pierced through the void and pierced through the chest of an expert from the devil religion, tearing him apart and turning him into a bloody mist. Jiangchen's figure landed beside Du Xiaofu. His face was handsome, and the complex aura on his body was like a black hole, fascinating. His expression was calm, as if the expert from the devil religion who had just been killed had nothing to do with him. The expressions of the 3 demon emperors changed. The 3 of them stopped retreating. Then, their gazes instantly fixed on the 2 figures that had suddenly appeared. Bastard! Ju demon emperor's gloomy voice came out of his mouth. But when he looked at Du Xiaofu, his gloomy face suddenly revealed a cold smile. Kiki! Ju demon emperor laughed. He said with a gloomy sneer, I didn't even need to do anything. Boy, You delivered yourself to me. Which one do you choose? Du Xiaofu turned a deaf ear to Ju Demon Emperor's sneer. He glanced at the 8th Demon Emperor and the 7th Demon Emperor and said to Jiangchen, "Leave the woman to me." Jiangchen's gaze swept across the 7th Demon Emperor. His deep black eyes flashed with killing intent. He stretched out his hand and swept the void behind him. Suddenly, an endless black aura lingered in the surrounding space, tearing a large piece of space apart. Ah! A miserable scream rang out. The remaining expert from the devil religion appeared in the void. Half of his body had been destroyed, and black blood was spitting out of his mouth. Roar! A deafening roar rang out as the body of a gigantic demonic beast gushed with devilish qi. It was as though a gigantic mountain was crushing down. The remaining demonic beast instantly acted against Du Xiaofu. "Die for me!" Du Xiaofu raised his hand and slapped out. A large amount of golden light surged on his palm. This was the Fuyao Heaven-Shaking Wings. Although his methods and cultivation were restricted, Du Xiaofu's body was like a real rock. The Fuyao Heaven-Shaking Wings came from his body. He used his hand as a substitute for wings and fiercely slapped out. Chapter 2100. This demonic beast was very strong and was close to the half-saint level. However, no matter how strong it was, it had yet to reach the half-saint level. Du Xiaofu's physical body had long surpassed that of cultivators of the same level. Even Feng Han and Jialo Jueyu, who were the best of the best in the Phoenix and Golden-Winged Great Peng clans, had physical bodies that could not be compared to those of the same level. Indestructible Xin body, coupled with the true Peng realm of the Golden-Winged Great Peng clan, his physical body was so strong that it was unbelievably abnormal. In terms of physical strength, there weren't many living beings in this world who could be compared to Du Xiaofu at the moment. Bang! 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 Wherever the skyquake wings swept past, the powerful demonic beast shattered inch by inch and turned into a bloody mist. "Brat, you're courting death." The 9-Demon Emperor roared. Du Xiaofu had ignored him and looked down on him, which had already infuriated him. Now, a demonic beast expert was smashed into pieces right in front of him. This was a provocation to him. Boom! 9-Demon Emperor stepped out. Devil Qi leaked out from his black armor as the devil Qi within his body towered up into the sky. His silhouette shot out with great speed as he blasted a punch towards Du Xiaofu. Before his fist, a large patch of the void shattered soundlessly. Du Xiaofu sneered as he looked at the black figure, whose eyes were rapidly enlarging. A cold light flashed in his eyes. He shook his arm and threw a punch at the 9-Demon Emperor without holding back his physical strength. Boom! The two fists collided. It was as though two meteorites had collided together. A low and deep sonic boom suddenly resounded from the point of collision like muffled thunder. Qi-la! The space exploded. The 9-Demon Emperor was sent flying back under the astonished gazes of the 8-Demon Emperor and the 7-Demon Emperors. His feet brushed against the ground, and he was sent flying back dozens of meters before he could stabilize his body. The 9-Demon Emperor's sneer turned into shock in an instant. The blood in his body was surging, and he felt a sharp pain in his fist. Back then, he could easily crush an ant to death time and time again. But today, he was shocked to see that the 9-Demon Emperor was so weak. The 9-Demon Emperor could not believe it. How is this possible? This is absolutely impossible. How can that brat have such strength? However, the sharp pain in his fist told him that this was not an illusion. It was real. Du Xiaofu was also sent flying. However, he was unable to stop the 9-Demon Emperor. He was 9-Demon Emperor. Du Xiaofu was Du He was the 9-Demon Emperor. The 9-Demon Emperor, the 9-Demon Emperor. This is not the UR. Du Xiaofu merely uttered these words. Just as Ju Demon Emperor stabilized his body, his figure instantly pounced forward. Golden light fluctuated in his palm as his 5 fingers curled slightly. The great rock's chaos-shattering claw was extended. It was incomparably domineering, and it was as if there was an illusory figure of a golden-winged rock soaring into the sky. Bastard! The 9-Demon Emperor's face was extremely gloomy. He raised his arm and shouted like thunder. His devil aura was surging. He used his full strength to meet Yi Shiwen's attack. Bang, bang, bang. With Du Xiaofu and the Nine Demon Emperor as the center of the collision, the ground around them crumbled inch by inch. Large cracks appeared on the ground. Du Xiaofu's body was sent flying. However, he stabilized his body after a few steps. He raised his eyebrows slightly. The Nine Demon Emperor had suppressed his cultivation and techniques in this strange place. However, his cultivation and strength had an imperceptible influence on his body. Du Xiaofu felt that he could trample the Nine Demon Emperor's body in this strange place if he could advance further. However, he had not set foot in the Sage Realm yet. The Nine Demon Emperor was sent flying again. His feet stepped on the ground as he staggered backward. The ground collapsed and turned into fine powder wherever his feet passed. How can this brat be so strong? The Nine Demon Emperor looked even more shocked. What kind of person was he? In ancient times, the 9 great families and the ancient experts of the dragons and phoenixes were unable to do anything to him. His cultivation and techniques were suppressed in this strange place. However, his body was still able to exert a physical strength that was enough to crush an ordinary Sage Realm expert. However, Du Xiaofu had not set foot in the Sage Realm yet. Yet, he was able to put him in such a difficult situation. This brat has the divine thunder cauldron. His body has been tempered. Moreover, he is related to the golden-winged rock clan. He is outstanding. We are suppressed in this place. Let's deal with him together. The 8 Demon Emperor said in a gloomy voice. Runes flickered on his dark bald head. It looked like devil aura was rising in spirals. His figure swept towards Du Xiaofu. A fingerprint pierced through the space. Devil aura fluctuated. It was like a black thunderbolt. It instantly pointed at the back of Du Xiaofu's head. Then let's do it together. Jiangxin muttered to himself. His black eyes became even darker and deeper. When the 8 Demon Emperor rushed towards Du Xiaofu, a majestic black evil aura suddenly gushed out of his body. It turned into a wave and rushed towards the 7 Demon Emperors. These bastards of the devil religion, the dignified Demon Emperors, are so shameless. They are joining hands to deal with one person. On the warship, Qi Jiajun looked at the front of the warship and cursed loudly. However, he was only cursing angrily. He knew that his physical strength could not be involved. Du Xiaofu had just stabilized his body when he sensed the movement behind him. He did not dodge. As he turned around, a fingerprint condensed at the same time. He chose to meet the attack head-on. The 2 fingerprints collided. One was as black as ink, and the other was glittering with golden light. 2 resplendent rays of light erupted. If one looked closely, they would see that the 8 Demon Emperor's fingertips were slightly bent. Then, they were directly shaken away and his body staggered back. His fingertips went numb, and the 8 Demon Emperor paled. Although he knew that Du Xiaofu's physical body was powerful, he had not imagined that it would be this powerful. Rumble. Not far away, the ground exploded. The earth trembled and shattered rocks shot everywhere. Jiangxin and the 7 Demon Emperor were both pushed back. It seemed that neither of them had gained the upper hand. Roar. As he was pushed back, Jiangxin let out a thunderous roar. His body glowed with light as he transformed into his 300-meter-tall golden growler. Golden fur covered his body. His eyes were as red as cinnabar, and his scales exploded. There really is a golden growler. The 7 Demon Emperor was surprised, but not too surprised. She had already learned of Jiangxin's existence from the 9 Demon Emperors. However, the 7 Demon Emperor's expression was very gloomy. The strange skull tattoo on her cheek glowed. She had not been able to gain the upper hand in terms of physical strength. Screech. Looking at the 300-meter-tall golden growler, the 7 Demon Emperor's body expanded. Amidst the fluctuations of demonic qi, a piercing shriek rang out. Black flames filled the air, and the enchanting body of the golden growler instantly transformed into its 3,000-meter-tall golden growler. Black flames surged, and the flames burned fiercely. White mist rose from the void, forming a vacuum. Such flames accompanied by demonic qi could destroy everything. Most importantly, when such a huge bird flapped its wings, it formed a storm. Black flames swept out like waves, capable of destroying everything. It was very terrifying. This was a huge dark phoenix. Although it was suppressed in this strange place, it still exuded the most terrifying aura. At this moment, even Du Xiaofu, who was facing the 9th Demon Emperor and the 8th Demon Emperor from a short distance away, turned to look at each other in surprise. He had never imagined that this Demon Emperor was actually a Dark Phoenix. Dark Phoenix. When such a Dark Phoenix appeared on the huge ancient warship covered by the energy shield, Feng Han's expression changed. This was a Dark Phoenix from the Phoenix clan. It had a deep relationship with the Phoenix clan. However, Jiangchen did not show any fear. His sharp claws were like curved hooks, and his teeth were like sharp blades. The cold light was frightening, and the smell of blood filled the nose. He directly pounced on the Dark Phoenix. Qila, the golden growler's claws could tear the void apart. Together with the monstrous black aura of its body, a terrifying red smoke burned the void. Walala! The Dark Phoenix flapped its wings, and black flames engulfed everything. Its ferocious eyes were like two black suns. Such a battle made everyone's eyes tremble, and everyone was shocked. Old 8, end this quickly, the 9 Demon Emperor said. Although their cultivation was suppressed in this strange place, and they had lost the most direct advantage, it was also an excellent opportunity. That brat did not have the Golden-Winged Rock Clan and the Yin-Yang School by his side. It was a great opportunity to suppress him. Boom! The 8 Demon Emperor's body expanded, breaking through the void and turning into a huge black scorpion. Its huge tail was suffused with demonic qi, and it glowed with a cold light. It was like a giant pole that stood in the depths of the void. It trembled slightly, and pitch-black spatial cracks appeared all around it, releasing a terrifying sound. Du Xiaofu's eyes were filled with surprise. The 8 Demon Emperor also had the body of a beast. Qila. The black scorpion's huge tail was like a black bolt of lightning that shot out from the depths of the void towards Du Xiaofu, directly piercing through the void. Du Xiaofu's eyes darkened, but there was no fear in them. If they were outside, he would be apprehensive. But here, his cultivation was suppressed, and he could only rely on the strength of his physical body. There was no reason for him to be afraid. Boom! The Golden-Winged Rock Clan spread out behind him, and a domineering will swept out. Golden light filled the sky, and he dodged the huge tail with unbelievable speed. Come! Du Xiaofu shouted. Purple-gold light surged in his palm, and the purple-gold celestial tower appeared in his hand. The sound of wind and thunder could be heard, and sword light filled the sky as it slashed towards the huge black scorpion. Strangely, cultivation strength and all means were suppressed, including sword intent. However, the most basic sword moves were not suppressed. Du Xiaofu used the Bright Saint Sword Manual to support his physical body and the power of the purple-gold celestial tower, and the sword light shattered the void. Brat, you're courting death. The 9 Demon Emperor joined in. His black armor was covered with demonic qi, and his face was gloomy. He joined forces with the 8 Demon Emperor to attack Du Xiaofu. Perhaps these 2 Demon Emperors would never have thought that with their cultivation and status, they would need to join forces to attack a junior. If news of this were to spread, they would become the laughing stock of the world. Therefore, no matter what, none of the people present would be let off today. Such a great battle was on the verge of breaking out, and it instantly erupted. Jiangchen Golden Growler clashed with Go Busy Dark Phoenix's body. One was overflowing with black, baleful aura, while the other was overflowing with black flames. The two clashed intensely, and for a moment, no one seemed to have the upper hand. Du Xiaofu faced the 9 Demon Emperor and the 8 Demon Emperor, and sword light spread out, enveloping the void. Chapter 2101. The body of the 8th Demon Emperor Black Scorpion was enormous. His enormous tail was like a spear that emitted a deep cold light as it pierced through the void. The 9 Demon Emperor's devilish aura was torrential as he shattered the void with a raise of his hand. Even though the 2 devilish emperors had suppressed their cultivation bases in this strange place, their fleshly bodies were definitely powerful enough to strike fear into the hearts of other devilish emperors. However, Du Xiaofu's physical body was too monstrous. The golden Pong wings on his back were like a real Pong, carrying the domineering will of the golden-winged Pong clan. The purple-gold heavenly palace in his hand burst out, allowing him to move freely under the attacks of 2 devil emperors. Pooh! All of a sudden, the 8 demon emperors seemed to have found an opportunity. Du Xiaofu's shoulder was pierced by the scorpion tail, and fresh blood spurted out. His corporeal body was almost torn apart. Everyone on the battleship was worried about Du Xiaofu. Their faces were extremely solemn. However, Du Xiaofu, who was in the middle of it all, did not panic at all. It was as if he had everything planned out, and the corners of his mouth curled into a sneer. The 8 demon emperors' ferocious brown eyes changed color. He had made a mistake in his estimation. He thought that he would be able to tear that brat's body to shreds, but he didn't expect that he would only be able to penetrate that brat's body and find it hard to advance even an inch. Looking at Du Xiaofu's calm expression and the sneer on the corner of his mouth, a bad premonition instantly gushed out from the bottom of his heart. He wanted to retreat immediately. However, it was too late. Du Xiaofu's left hand gripped the scorpion tip in front of him tightly while his right hand slashed down with the purple-gold heavenly tower. Kacha! The scorpion tail was broken. Blood splashed outwards, and demonic energy pervaded the air. Bastard! The 8 demon emperors roared in anger. The pain of having their tails severed was even more humiliating. 2 demon emperors had joined hands to deal with a junior, yet they still suffered from the pain of having their tails severed. Bang! The 9 demon emperor arrived. One had to admit that the 9 demon emperor's physical body was extremely strong. His speed was as fast as lightning, and a palm imprint containing unparalleled power landed on Du Xiaofu's back. The impact caused Du Xiaofu to stagger forward, and he almost fell from the sky. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. However, at this moment, the golden wings on Du Xiaofu's back exploded with golden light. 36 true rock feathers shot out like lightning. Du Xiaofu's 36 true rock feathers were suppressed in this strange place, but he could still use them like the great rock's golden wings. The only thing that was affected was their power. 36 true rock feathers transformed into 36 golden lightning bolts, instantly wrapping around 9 demon emperor. 9 demon emperor retreated at a speed faster than lightning. He dodged most of the true rock's feathers. However, the 12 true rock feathers still managed to pierce into the 9 demon emperor's black battle armor with lightning-like speed. They caused cracks to appear on the 9 demon emperor's battle armor. However, they did not manage to pierce through his body. Qila, the half-a-foot-long scorpion tail, was pulled out from Du Xiaofu's shoulder and shattered into a bloody mist in his palm. The great Peng flapped its golden wings, and the 36 true Peng feathers were retracted. Puchi, faint golden blood flowed out from Du Xiaofu's mouth. His long black hair was disheveled. The 9 demon emperor's black battle armor was also bleeding. He was not in a good condition. So strong. On the warship, Feng Han, Qi Jiajun, and the others were stunned. They felt a chill run down their spines. That demon king was able to fight against 2 demon emperors by himself, and even managed to injure them. How strong was he? Little bastard! 9 demon emperor roared. They were already sullen when 2 demon emperors ganged up on a junior. Now, they were even injured. This was simply a humiliation. Immediately, the 8 demon emperors attacked Du Xiaofu in a frenzy. Du Xiaofu was fearless. He spread his great rock's golden wings, and like a true rock striking the sky, his sword light pierced through the sky. The more he fought, the more valiant he became. Du Xiaofu continuously clashed with the 2 demon emperors using his physical strength. The muffled sounds were like thunder, shaking the mountains and rivers. The entire battlefield was filled with torrential devil qi, covering the sky and the earth. The gloomy devil qi was accompanied by the cries of ghosts and howls of gods. It was as if the netherworld realm had opened. After several moves, the huge body of the 8 demon emperors was lacerated by the sword light once again, and blood gushed out. The black battle armor in front of the 9 demon emperors' chest was deeply dented by Du Xiaofu's punch. Cracks appeared all around, and it seemed like it was about to shatter. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Du Xiaofu was also injured again. His purple robe was torn apart by the claws of the 8 demon emperors. Du Xiaofu would not be polite to the people of the devil religion. From the 2 strange light screens not long ago, Du Xiaofu saw a corner of the great calamity. The people were in a terrible situation, and corpses were everywhere. The world had turned into a purgatory. All of this was related to the devil religion. At this moment, this was an excellent opportunity. If he could take advantage of this opportunity to eliminate these 2 demon emperors, even if it was just one, it could be considered as eliminating a great threat. With the strength and cultivation of these demon emperors, once they left this strange place, even experts like the Moon Sage and Xiangu would not be able to deal with these demon emperors. Du Xiaofu hoped that he could suppress a demon emperor. With the status of these demon emperors in the devil religion, he would have the opportunity to exchange for his master, the revered equipment master Xiahou Fenglei. Fight. The more he fought, the braver he became. Du Xiaofu flapped his wings and soared into the sky. Relying on the golden rock wings, he had a great advantage in speed in this strange place. He constantly clashed with the 8 demon emperors and 9 demon emperors with his powerful physical body. There was not much skill in such a battle. There was only the advantage of speed and domineering strength. It could be said that such a battle was a lose-lose situation for both sides. Bang, bang, bang. Du Xiaofu was constantly injured. He spat out blood, and his hair was in a mess. However, Du Xiaofu became crazier as the battle went on. He continued to attack, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He looked even more ferocious, just like the Demon King. However, the 8 demon emperors and 9 demon emperors did not gain any advantage. They were also bleeding. Bastard! Little bastard! The 9 demon emperors and 8 demon emperors roared furiously. They were incomparably furious. Demonic chi swept out like an angry wind, and it was extremely terrifying. What kind of status did they have? They were the dignified demon emperors who had been revived in the heavenly devil battlefield. They originally thought that they could dominate the world. Who would have thought that they would be defeated by a junior to such an extent? 2 demon emperors working together could not gain any advantage. Continue. Du Xiaofu flapped his wings, and golden light surged in his eyes. He was like a human-shaped rock, and he was incomparably domineering. His body was stained with blood, and he looked even more ferocious and imposing. Du Xiaofu raised his sword and moved. He activated the Bright Sage Sword Manual, and sword light overflowed. It swept across the 8 demon emperors and 9 demon emperors, shattering a large part of the void. The crazy battle was intense, and it caused the void to boil. The 8 demon emperors and 9 demon emperors were forced to the extreme. They did not hold back and went all out. Bang, bang. Not long after, Du Xiaofu's calf was torn apart by the sharp claws, and his back was also ruthlessly punched. Du Xiaofu was wrapped in the rock's golden wings, and feathers also fell. He opened his mouth and spat out blood. Drip, drip, drip. However, the injuries of the 8 demon emperors and 9 demon emperors were more serious. 5 deep wounds were left on the 8 demon emperors' huge black scorpion body. Blood flowed out, and the wounds were so deep that the bones could be seen. Blood splashed out from the 9 demon emperor's shoulder. His left arm was almost chopped off,